Chapter 1159. Aeagus was also ruthless. After using almost all of his points to exchange for the space bomb, he went straight to the Scarlet Flame volcano where Lin Jun was. He was originally close to the area where Lin Jun was. When he arrived, there was no one else there. Seeing the tribulation clouds gathering in the sky, Aeagus gritted his teeth and went straight to the volcano. The heavenly tribulation gathered in the sky, and the dense tribulation clouds seemed to be about to fall on top of his head. Lin Jun looked up at the sky and saw that within the tribulation clouds, there were streaks of gold energy that were crisscrossing in the clouds. It's the gold energy tribulation clouds again. These heavenly tribulations will automatically find a person's weakness to attack, and my understanding of gold energy is still relatively weak. Lin Jun's expression was solemn. Among the elemental energies that he cultivated, the one that was the most difficult to deal with was actually the gold energy. The other energies that had not been comprehended, whether it was wind, fire, earth, wood, etc., were not enough to cause much of a threat to Lin Jun. But the gold energy was different. Gold was the head of the 5 elements, and the difficulty of comprehending it was not any lower than the lightning energy. This had always been Lin Jun's weakness. However, he was not particularly worried. He had been baptized by the tribulation in the Earth's core purgatory before, so he did not take the tribulation of the 5th level to heart. He prepared with all his might. The first tribulation was like the sword of a god, piercing down from the sky. Lin Jun channeled his divine power, his arms turned into armor, and took it head-on. The first tribulation was dispersed, but the second one quickly gathered. Tribulation after tribulation fell, but Lin Jun dealt with it calmly. Seems like it's as I expected. The power of these tribulation didn't change much. I should be able to easily withstand the first 30. After the 30th, as long as I pay more attention, there shouldn't be any problems. Each tribulation was stronger than the last, but Lin Jun had the mutated leech gene. Even if the tribulation was slightly stronger, it would not hurt him. The gold energy was not enough to cut his body. Just as Lin Jun blocked the 30th tribulation, a person appeared at the mouth of the volcano. Even though Lin Jun was resisting the heavenly tribulation, he didn't forget to use his spiritual power to monitor the situation around him. Lin Jun was the first to notice that a figure had appeared at the mouth of the volcano. It's actually Aeagus. Lin Jun instinctively felt that something was wrong. Aeagus and Lin Jun had a grudge against each other. Nothing good would happen if this person appeared here. As expected, when Aeagus saw that Lin Jun was still trying his best to resist the heavenly tribulation, a sinister smile appeared on his face. It really is you. Lin Jun, I knew it was you. What do you want to do? What are you doing? Hee. You're really lucky. Even such a strong person like Feng Xiao died in your hands. I have nothing else to do here. I just want to send you on your way. Lin Jun coldly snorted. Although he was resisting the tribulation, he wasn't afraid of Aeagus. At this time, he definitely wouldn't dare to rush into the volcano. Unexpectedly, Aeagus didn't have any intention of entering the volcano. Instead, he took out a round object from his hand. Starry Sky Bomb. Lin Jun, in order to deal with you, I spent over 1,000,000 points to get this. Your death is worth it. With that, Aeagus threw the bomb directly into the volcano. Lin Jun, who was resisting the heavenly tribulation, couldn't move at all. After seeing the bomb fall into the lava, he immediately knew what Aeagus was planning. A huge ball of fire rose up. The originally calm magma of the volcano was completely stimulated by the power of the bomb. The surging energy could no longer be suppressed and surged up like a tide. This wasn't the scary part. The scary part was that under the influence of the heavenly tribulation, the gold chi in the volcano started to boil. Streaks of golden light rose up from the Earth's core, merging with the tribulation clouds in the sky. The entire world was filled with roaring golden energy, like sharp swords flying into the sky, filling the entire space. Ha ha ha. Lin Jun, enjoy it well. I hope that when I come back later, I can still see a piece of your flesh. Seeing that the bomb had taken effect, Aeagus didn't stay any longer. He turned around and left, disappearing into the volcano. The gold chi here was too strong. If he continued to stay, he might even lose his life here. Lin Jun was furious, but he had to deal with the situation in front of him. The chaos heavenly tribulation descended with chaos aura, and the volcano erupted with energy elements similar to chaos aura. I was too careless. I forgot that I was sitting on top of the volcano and was in a dangerous situation at any time. I also didn't expect that Aegis would still find traces of my actions, even though I was so secretive. No matter how he reacted, the tribulation clouds had already arrived, and there was no way to dodge. This was what the saying meant. Lin Jun's only choice was to face it head-on. The 31st tribulation had already arrived, and Lin Jun still chose to face it head-on. However, Lin Jun immediately learned his lesson. The gold chi in the sky and on the ground almost killed Lin Jun on the spot. If it wasn't for the fact that the leech gene was powerful enough, he would have died. Good fellow. The combination of the gold chi in the two chambers doubled the power. I think the power of this tribulation has already reached the 6th level of tribulation, or even surpassed it. Lin Jun didn't dare to be careless in the following tribulation. He immediately activated the mysterious yellow pagoda. It had to be said that the mysterious yellow pagoda was indeed powerful. Streams of mysterious yellow chi rolled up and down, blocking off most of the gold chi. 32, 35, 38, 40. After the 45th tribulation, the tribulation was already terrifying to the extreme. Lin Jun felt that the power might have already surpassed the 7th level of tribulation. The 5th level tribulation had 45, the 6th level tribulation had 64, and the 7th level tribulation had 81. The power of these 49 tribulations had doubled and indeed surpassed the 7th level of tribulation. That was something that only mid-late high gods would have to face. Lin Jun's current divine power was somewhat unable to withstand it. 46, gritting his teeth and persevering. 47, persevering with all his might. 48, Lin Jun had already used all his means and was in a state of near death. And the last tribulation was much more powerful than all the previous ones. Lin Jun was almost certain that with his current divine power and state, he wouldn't be able to withstand this tribulation. Let's do it. A dead horse is a living horse. If I can't withstand this tribulation, it's over. Although I haven't comprehended the gold chi's true essence, I still want to taste what this gold chi tastes like. Lin Jun steeled his heart and transformed into the black hole beast. Chapter 1160. Lin Jun had never tried to use the power of the black hole to devour the power of the heavenly tribulation. Although the black hole was a trap of the universe and could devour everything, the heavenly tribulation was different. It was formed by the power of chaos and was not something that could be devoured. Even if it was devoured, it would not be digested. However, Lin Jun had no other choice. His divine power was used up when he controlled the mysterious yellow pagoda to resist the heavenly tribulation. If he did not devour, the consequences would not be good. He had no other choice, so he made this choice. The power of the black hole was indeed powerful. When the death ripples appeared, the surrounding gold gas seemed to have fallen into a whirlpool and flowed into the black hole like water. However, the gold gas could not be easily dispelled. After entering the black hole, it continued to rampage and refused to stop. Lin Jun used all the strength in his body to prevent the black hole from collapsing. It's either you die or I die. Anyone who wants me dead will not have a good ending, even if it's the heavenly tribulation. The black hole's death ripples overlapped and absorbed all the surrounding gold gas. The tribulation clouds dispersed, and Lin Jun was truly exhausted at this point. He fell to the ground. Although he survived the heavenly tribulation, he did not relax. The gold gas tangled into a ball and formed a huge ball of gold gas that spiraled in the black hole. Even with the power of the black hole, it could not digest this ball of gold gas. Instead, it emitted gold gas from time to time and attacked Lin Jun's dantian. If it was not for the suppression of the black hole, This ball of gold gas could have turned Lin Jun into a porcupine from the inside of Lin Jun's body. The only way was to use the power of the black hole to suppress it. This method was indeed effective, but it meant that Lin Jun's black hole could not be used. This move was Lin Jun's trump card, the ultimate move against experts. It was useless just like that. One could imagine how angry Lin Jun was. Aeagus. Bastard. Lin Jun did not have the time to find trouble with Aeagus. He originally thought that he would not be able to collect the 9 rulers' imperial jade seals in such a short time. He did not expect this guy to make the first move. Good. Once I've finished cultivating, or once I've digested this lump of gold chi, even if I have to go to the ends of the earth, I'll definitely take your dog life. Having made up his mind, Lin Jun was not in a hurry to leave the crater to seek revenge. Without the threat of the heavenly tribulation's power, it would be useless even if someone used a bomb to harm him. The power of the volcano alone would not be able to break through the defenses of the mysterious yellow pagoda. Moreover, he urgently needed to rest. That was the most important thing. Aeagus could not believe what he was seeing. The heavenly tribulation had actually dispersed. That vast and mighty golden chi had actually failed to kill Lin Jun. How could this be? Didn't the heavenly tribulation automatically look for a person's weakness to attack? How come the gold chi didn't kill this bastard? Did he cultivate the cockroach gene? Aeagus gritted his teeth. He wanted to go to the volcano to take a look, but no matter what, he did not dare. He could only turn around and flee, hoping that Lin Jun would not come and kill him. After running far away and reaching a safe place, Aeagus finally dared to stop and take a breather. He was very clear that Lin Jun would not let him go no matter what. Moreover, through this matter, Aeagus had lost the confidence to face Lin Jun head-on. He believed that once Lin Jun finished cultivating, the first thing he would do would be to settle the score with him, and he would not be his opponent. After thinking about this matter for a long time, Aeagus finally made a huge decision. Forget it. I'm not some peerless genius. Looks like I have no fate with a mixed yuan armor. However, Lin Jun, if I can't get it, you can forget about getting it. The 8 rulers' imperial jade seals on you are the king of hell that wants your life. Aeagus opened an interface in his dimension universe. This interface had the information of all the disciples that Lone Star Fishing Elder had chosen. There were a total of 16 people. Aeagus added everyone's dimension universe, and then created a group chat. He keyed in a message. Ruler's Imperial Jade Seals. Gather 9 pieces, and you can obtain a peak-grade equipment, the mixed yuan armor. Currently, I have 2, and Lin Jun has 8. We are all in the volcanic region outside the Mirror Lake continent. After typing this message, Aeagus let out a long sigh. As long as someone came looking for him, he would rather give up on the 2 rulers' Imperial Jade Seals. However, he did not believe that Lin Jun would give them up as well. This would definitely bring death to Lin Jun. Aeagus' message seemed to have caused everyone's emotions to explode. What kind of concept was a peak-grade equipment? Not to mention a superior god. Even a normal divine king would not have a single peak-grade equipment. Only the peak divine kings would have a chance to obtain one. It was said that some weaker rulers did not even have a peak-grade equipment. Especially when it was a peak-grade armor, it was the foundation of survival. When fighting against people below the divine king level, one would not be afraid of close combat injuries. Even when fighting against the divine king, a peak-grade armor was a heaven-defying treasure. Wanting to break through the defense of this armor was not an ordinary level of difficulty. None of Lone Star Fishing Elder's disciples had yet to become a divine king. Even the strongest, Andamandes, was still at the peak of a superior god. He was still a step away from becoming a divine king. Hearing Aeagus' words, Andamandes was the first to respond. Are you serious? Aeagus had already thrown caution to the wind. Moreover, giving the ruler's imperial jade seal to Anda was better than giving it to others. He immediately replied, It's absolutely true. If senior brother Anda does not believe me, you can come and find me. I will give you the 2 pieces that I have. Then, you will know the secret behind it. But, senior brother Anda has to promise me one thing. Say it. Anda quickly sent a private message. Senior brother Anda has to guarantee my safety. I am worried that Lin Jun will come and kill me. Andamandes pondered for a while. I'm also in the Mirror Lake continent. However, I am in the Mirror Lake area. The situation here is more complicated. I cannot go to the outer volcanic area for now. In 3 to 5 years, I will definitely come find you. Also, where is Lin Jun in the Mirror Lake? Then does senior brother Anda believe what I said? Iagus did not reveal Lin Jun's location for now. This would be his trump card in the negotiation. Whoever wanted to obtain the equipment, their first target could be Lin Jun. Iagus did not dare to reveal everything at once. If that happened, he would lose his value. It's fine. I have also met some of our disciples here. We can do an experiment. The calm words made Iagus break out in cold sweat. Was Anda preparing to kill his fellow disciple? You cannot say anything about Lin Jun. However, you have to promise that you will not reveal it to anyone else during this period of time. Also, can you guarantee that Lin Jun will not be the first to obtain the 9 Imperial Jade Seals? I can promise that I will not tell anyone about this. Also, senior brother, do not worry. Lin Jun has absolutely no chance of obtaining the next Imperial Jade Seal. Chapter 1161. Iagus's words caused a reaction among the others. Andamandes wasn't the only one who was tempted. Even Grimm was tempted. A total of 32 rulers' Imperial Jade Seals were given out. 9 of them could obtain a set of mixed element armor. According to Iagus's words, whoever gathered them first would get it first. In that case, he would also have the chance. However, Green did not plan to make a move against Lin Jun for the time being. After all, Lin Jun did not let him off. What he wanted to do was to find his fellow apprentices. Others might not be able to find his fellow apprentices, but Green had his ways. Because Green's father was a ruler himself. It was also because of this that Green had the confidence to not put anyone in his eyes, including Andamandes. He could use his father's power to find where the others were and obtain what he wanted. If he wanted to do it, he would do it. Similarly, Green from the Mirror Lake continent also joined the action of collecting the Imperial Jade Seals. When the others heard this news, they had different reactions. Some wanted to gather the armor, while others felt that a great disaster was about to befall them. That bastard Iagus had announced such important news. Then, when the 16 of them met again, they would no longer be fellow apprentices, but mortal enemies. As for those who were tempted, they set their sights on Lin Jun. Killing the others one by one would be too tiring. They might as well find Lin Jun and get rid of him to obtain the 8 Imperial Jade Seals, succeeding in one go. Although Iagus was unwilling to say where Lin Jun was, these people were all resourceful and were still able to find some clues. At the very least, Lin Jun was definitely in the volcanic area. Furthermore, Iagus's position was not difficult to find. It was estimated that Lin Jun was in the vicinity of this direction. A few fellow apprentices who believed themselves to be powerful began to move towards Lin Jun's direction. Lin Jun did not see Iagus's actions. After passing the level 5 Heavenly Tribulation, Lin Jun entered a new round of training. Han Sun did not have the Geno Concentrate on him. Even if he had the level 6 Geno Concentrate, he would not have the time to practice it. After Lin Jun's black hole power suppressed the mass of gold chi that could cause chaos at any time, he started to cultivate the Soul Guard. Lin Jun was currently at the 16th level of the Heavenly Platform, and he still needed about 7 years to reach the level of a mid-level deity. This period of time was enough for Lin Jun to take another big step forward on the Heavenly Platform. After obtaining the Universe Origin, Lin Jun's comprehension talent had already reached a level that no one could match. This kind of talent brought about an incomparably huge benefit. In terms of comprehension of cultivation methods, Lin Jun's speed was frightening. 1 year was equivalent to 144 years for Lin Jun. Before the end of the first year, he had already broken through the 16th level and entered the 17th. After entering the 17th floor, Lin Jun once again absorbed the Divine Stone. In the second year, he absorbed Divine Stones again. At the end of the second year, he entered the 18th level. In the third year, he absorbed Divine Stones for the third time. In the fourth year, he entered the 19th level, and then he absorbed divine stones again day after day, year after year. In the second half of the 6th year, Lin Jun had already reached the 22nd level of the heavenly platform. In 7 years, he had broken through 7 levels. Of course, this was due to the yin-yang hourglass and his body's 24 times time deceleration. However, if this speed was told to others, no one would believe it. However, this 22nd level of the heavenly platform was also bitten down by Lin Jun with his life. After passing it, he knew that if he wanted to continue to the 23rd level, the difficulty would increase exponentially, more than 10 times. Lin Jun's current soul strength had also reached the level of a late-stage deity king. As for his 4 dark matter elements, the lowest one, the super electron, had reached the level of 380. After passing the 3rd level of the heavenly platform, Lin Jun could cultivate the 4th clone. Of course, this was not something that could be done in a short period of time. Now, Lin Jun was facing an even more important moment. That was today. He would once again absorb the divine power in the divine stones. After these few years of cultivation, Lin Jun's divine power had once again reached a critical point. As long as he absorbed this wave of divine stones, his divine power would break through the limit and reach the level of a mid-level deity. Ever since Lin Jun cultivated to the level of a low-level deity, although he could rely on some methods to fight with high-level deities, this kind of battle was not what Lin Jun wanted. Only when he advanced to the level of a mid-level deity would Lin Jun have the qualifications to enter the Mirror Lake area, and then he would have the qualifications to challenge those arrogant peak high-level deities and not rely on some auxiliary methods. For this cultivation, Lin Jun originally did not have enough divine stones. In the past few years, he had exchanged divine stones, and the source of points was the treasure-seeking vine. The treasure-seeking vine worked diligently every day and gave the things it collected to Lin Jun for him to squander and buy divine stones and energy blocks. However, the treasure-seeking vine was strictly ordered by Lin Jun not to go too far and also not to go to places that were too dangerous. The aura of the volcanoes also somewhat restrained the treasure-seeking vine's movements, so the things it collected were also limited. Most of the time, it was just some boundary stones and chaos origin stones. Later on, the treasure-seeking vine did not have enough things to collect, so he donated all the longsword and tricolor armor he obtained from Feng Shao to his points, and used them all to exchange for divine stones. Only then was he able to maintain his cultivation needs. In the eyes of others, this kind of behavior was completely the behavior of a prodigal, who would exchange weapons and treasures for divine stones. They were not on the same level at all. However, as long as he could break through and increase his strength, in Lin Jun's eyes, everything was worth it. Fortunately, all his hard work was rewarded today. After this absorption, he would advance to the level of a mid-level deity. After adjusting his aura and making sure that the ball of golden energy in his dantian would not cause any problems, Lin Jun resolutely swallowed the divine stones. After swallowing hundreds of thousands of divine stones, a powerful surge of divine power suddenly rose. The barrier that had been restricting Lin Jun's advancement was also broken by this surge of divine power. Following that, Lin Jun's divine power rose crazily uncontrollably. The minimum requirement to advance to the level of a mid-level deity was 400,000 divine power. Lin Jun could not be considered a mid-level deity, so he should be judged according to the standard of a high-level deity. The minimum requirement to advance to the level of a high-level deity was 800,000 divine power. Ordinary high-level deities would have around 1 million divine power. 1 million was a dividing line. Those who exceeded 1 million were considered geniuses, while those below 1 million were considered ordinary. Lin Jun's current divine power was 700,000. His breakthrough this time was certain to exceed 1 million divine power. As his divine power increased, so did his doppelganger and deity domain. Chapter 1162. Along the way, Lin Jun's breakthroughs were extremely solid. Each step left a footprint, and he had never made a mistake. It could be said that he would only break through when his strength had reached the limit. This time was no exception. Lin Jun's cultivation of each ability had almost reached the highest level he could reach. The reason why he was in such a hurry to cultivate this time was that Lin Jun had been forced into a corner. First, there was Lonely Star fishing Old Man's mission. Within 3,000 years, he could become his disciple if he became a godly king. If he could not reach this level, he would be eliminated. This forced Lin Jun to speed up. It was easy to go from a lower god to a middle god, but the cultivation from a middle god to a middle god would get harder and harder. Each time, it would take more time than the last. Moreover, this time at the Mirror Lake volcano range, he had witnessed the strength of the upper gods. Lin Jun also deeply understood his own shortcomings. With his current strength, he did not even have the qualifications to go to the Mirror Lake. He could only wander around the volcano area, and he even had to rely on the lightning cloak and grimace mask at all times. Therefore, he urgently needed to increase his strength so that he could fight against those powerful upper gods. After the barrier to becoming a middle god was opened, the divine power in Lin Jun's body began to skyrocket. When Lin Jun broke through to become a lower god, his divine power set a record in the entire universe, and he was congratulated by the universe's origin energy. This time, after breaking through to become a middle god, Lin Jun did not know if he could still set a record. Whether or not the universe's origin energy descended, Lin Jun decided to take this step. When he broke through to the next level, it was as if he had been injected with chicken blood. It soared all the way. 800,000, 900,000, 1 million. The process from 700,000 to 1 million did not take much time at all. His lightning doppelganger, holy light doppelganger, and the water doppelganger at the fallen star lake in the primordial realm all broke through to become a middle god. His divine power also soared all the way. However, Lin Jun did not have time to look at his doppelganger. He was focused on his main body. 1 million was Lin Jun's bottom line. If he could not even reach this number, then his breakthrough could be considered failure. Fortunately, this number quickly broke through and continued to rise. 1 million, 1 million. 1, 2 million. As far as Lin Jun knew, 1 million was the threshold for breaking through to become a high god. Whether it was 800,000 or 900,000, they were all relatively weak high gods. As for the range between 1 million and 1,200,000, this was a normal number. Most high gods would hover around this range of divine power. Only those extremely talented individuals would be able to surpass the 1.2 million mark. For Lin Jun to be able to reach this level as a god was already something to be proud of. As he saw it, 1.2 million was a pass, but not an outstanding one. He hoped that his divine power would reach 1,400,000 and double it again. It wasn't easy to double one's cultivation. To be able to double one's cultivation meant that one's cultivation was perfect and flawless. Only then could one double one's cultivation. After his divine power broke through 1.2 million, the rate of increase gradually slowed down. However, the speed wasn't too slow. After a few thousand jumps, it broke through to 1.3 million. 1.3 million divine power, in my opinion, is outstanding. However, there's still some distance from my goal. My divine power continued to grow for me. This time, Lin Jun didn't have any spare divine stones, and there weren't any large energy sources around him. After breaking through, his realm stabilized at the early stage of the mid-god realm. However, at this time, it could reflect his cultivation situation even more. After 1.3 million, his divine power further slowed down, but it was still rising. 132, 133, 135. Under Lin Jun's almost praying heart, his godly power finally reached the 1,400,000 godly power that Lin Jun had set. At this time, Lin Jun's heart finally relaxed. No matter how much his divine power grew, it would be worth it. This proved that his cultivation was still at a perfect level. His divine power grew by thousands every time. Compared to his previous lightning-fast speed, it was like crawling at a snail's pace. However, Lin Jun's state of mind calmed down. He simply closed his eyes and no longer paid attention to this divine power. Instead, his gaze fell on the growth of his doppelganger's divine power. This breakthrough caused the strength of Lin Jun's 3 doppelgangers to soar. Previously, each doppelganger had a divine power of 220,000. After this upgrade, his doppelganger had advanced to the mid-god realm. Their divine power had also doubled, reaching 440,000 divine power. The lightning doppelganger and the holy light doppelganger were still fine. They both advanced in Lin Jun's divine realm and didn't cause any commotion. As for Lin Jun's water doppelganger, it caused a stir in almost the entire original realm at Meteor Lake. The enormous divine power descended. Lin Jun couldn't control the pressure for a moment. Everyone around Meteor Lake could clearly feel it. People were extremely shocked and bowed in the direction of Meteor Lake. There was no second person who could cause such a huge commotion. Only Lin Jun, who stayed behind in the Holy Land, could do it. Within the Holy Land, Lin Jun's family members were crying tears of joy. The breakthrough itself proved that Lin Jun's original body was doing well in the outside world. They had all broken through. Lin Jun's wife, Su Mingyue, and Ning Qingxian, as well as his 2 sons and 1 daughter, the Angel Sisters, and Linga had all advanced to the divine realm at this moment. However, only Lin Jun's wives and 2 sons managed to break through on their own. Even his daughter didn't manage to break through on her own. Instead, she chose to break through using divinity crystals. As for Lin Jun's parents, they were still some distance away from breaking through using divinity crystals. Usually, they didn't want to disturb Lin Jun's doppelganger. Although the doppelganger knew about the original body situation, it was another person with another mind. They still couldn't get close to the doppelganger. They only knew that the doppelganger was still around and that the original body was fine. However, seeing the doppelganger break through today made them truly feel at ease. If the doppelganger's breakthrough caused such a huge commotion, how would the original body break through? Lin Jun's original body's breakthrough was indeed impressive. When he retracted his gaze from the 3 doppelganger, the original body's breakthrough was finally over, and the original body's divine power had reached an extremely high level of 51 million units. Lin Jun had once used his greatest imagination to imagine that his divine power might reach 5 million, but he had never thought of 51 million. This divine power was the greatest affirmation of his many years of cultivation. At this moment, Lin Jun once again experienced the taste of the universe's origin aura. Although the universe's origin didn't descend again, Lin Jun felt it. This proved that his breakthrough had once again set a new record in the entire universe. His original body's divine power was 51 million, and the 3 doppelgangers' divine power had reached 470,000. Although the water doppelganger couldn't borrow divine power in the original realm, Lin Jun's divine power had reached 45 million after the fusion. Chapter 1163. He used his mental power to scan his god world. Within the god world, the god crystal transformed once again. It became a chaotic, dark crystal, different from all the other god crystals Lin Jun had seen before. The few types of energy that had comprehended the truth were brighter, while the ones that had not were dimmer. Above the vast amount of god power within his dantian, a black hole was faintly revolving. Within the black hole, a star was being nurtured. That was the process of Lin Jun's true star exploding and condensing. Above the star, there was also a bright golden energy. That was the golden energy that came from when he devoured the heavenly tribulation. Now that it was being suppressed by the black hole, strands of golden energy would fly out from time to time, but they could not penetrate the black hole's range. If not for this golden energy, Lin Jun's black hole would be unstoppable by anyone below the God King stage. Temporarily ignoring the golden energy, Lin Jun had already been cultivating here for 17 years. The Mirror Lake continent had also opened for 17 years. It was time to go out and take a look. After using a few more days to stabilize his realm, Lin Jun left the place where he had been cultivating for 17 years. Baji. Lin Jun rushed out of the Scarlet Flame volcano. 17 years, to Lin Jun, who had been cultivating bitterly, was equivalent to 2,448 years. What kind of concept was 2,000 years? That was practically the evolutionary history of civilized society. Returning to the surface from the volcano made Lin Jun feel as if a lifetime had passed. With a thought, Lin Jun made the treasure-seeking vine quickly drill out from the ground. However, it did not carry any treasures on it. Because of Lin Jun's orders, the treasure-seeking vine did not go far. The nearby area had already been cleaned out by it. However, the treasure-seeking vine had already undergone a significant change. Following Lin Jun's advancement, the treasure-seeking vine had also advanced to the level of a middle god. After advancing to the level of a middle god, the treasure-seeking vine's appearance changed. When it came out, it even gave Lin Jun a fright. On one end of the vine, there were two more forks, like a three-headed snake. Under Lin Jun's strict orders, the treasure-hunting vine was able to control its size. However, if the treasure-hunting vine turned back to its normal size, it would probably be as big as a large river. It was over 100 kilometers long and several hundred meters thick. If this guy was thrown into the starry sky, it would belong to the giant beast clan. Furthermore, the range of the treasure-hunting tongue had increased from a diameter of 500 kilometers to a diameter of 1,000 kilometers. Within a radius of 1,000 kilometers, the aura of treasures could not be hidden from it. More importantly, it was extremely tough. Most likely, even a supreme high god wouldn't be able to do anything to it. After seeing Lin Jun, the treasure-hunting tongue very affectionately circled around Lin Jun like a pet. You've actually gained sentience. Plant life? The treasure-hunting tongue nodded its head, obviously understanding Lin Jun's words. Lin Jun was overjoyed. He never thought that the treasure-hunting tongue, which had consumed the wood elemental crystal and leveled up again, would actually possess intelligence. Moreover, its intelligence seemed to be quite high. This would be of great help to Lin Jun. The treasure-hunting tongue moved stealthily and was good at gathering information. Even in battle, it would be a great help to Lin Jun. You're originally formed from a green vine. I'll call you Little Green from now on. The treasure-hunting tongue's three heads nodded continuously. It looked very funny. Lin Jun raised his hand. The treasure-hunting tongue turned into a dark gold bracelet and circled around Lin Jun's wrist. After not coming out for so many years, Lin Jun didn't know much about the outside world. He opened the dimensional universe to check. As soon as he opened it, Lin Jun saw the records of the dimensional universe from 17 years ago. It was Aegis who mentioned that he had the ruler's jade seal. Looking at the reactions of the others, it was obvious that this matter had attracted their attention. This bastard, he thinks that it's too dangerous and has no hope of getting it. He's planning to ruin my plans. Lin Jun noticed that Andamandes and Aegis had communicated, which made him alert. Was Andamandes coming to find him? The possibility of this was very high. If it was before, Lin Jun's only choice would be to hide. But now, Lin Jun didn't care so much. Moreover, he realized that in these 17 years, out of the 16 candidates who participated in the test, 8 of their names were gray. That meant they were dead. Lin Jun clearly remembered that when he first entered to cultivate, the 16 people were still there. He didn't expect half of them to be dead now. Without a doubt, this was caused by Aegis's news. These people couldn't find him, so they started to attack the others. 32 people, 32 jade seals. Among them, about 6 or 7 jade seals have died long ago. Those jade seals can't be found anymore. I only occasionally saw one on a street stall. In that case, there should be a total of 25 jade seals in people's hands. I have 8, and there are 17 or 18 outside. If those people are especially strong, they might be able to get a set before me and get the mixed yuan armor. Lin Jun felt a trace of vigilance. He was determined to get the mixed yuan armor. He couldn't allow others to get it before him. And the best candidate was Aegis. He had at least 2 imperial jade seals in his hands. Lin Jun checked the dimensional universe and realized that Iagus had actually pulled him into a group chat. Lin Jun immediately found the situation of Iagus's dimensional universe and prepared to send a message. But before Lin Jun could send it, Iagus actually took the initiative to send a message to Lin Jun. Lin Jun was stunned for a moment before he picked it up. Iagus's image appeared on the other side. Hee hee, our cockroach Lin Jun has come out. Congratulations, you're so lucky. I just don't know if your future is good enough. Lin Jun sneered. You're monitoring my dimensional universe? That's right. I've been paying attention to your dimensional universe. When I saw your dimensional universe open, I knew you had come out. So, I contacted you immediately. How about it? No one cares about you more than me. I think you're more concerned about your own life. The dimensional universe's records can be tracked. Don't let me find you, or you'll be dead. Iagus waved his hand. No. Lin Jun, the conflict between us is only due to benefits. You're chasing me to get the ruler's jade seal. But let me tell you, the ruler's jade seal is no longer with me. You won't be able to get anything by chasing me. Do you think I'll believe you? Why wouldn't you believe me? Since I dare to release the news of the ruler's jade seal, I've given up on this armor. To tell you the truth, I've already given my jade seal to Andamandes. If you want it, you can go find him. There's no use trying to show off here. Chapter 1164. Lin Jun didn't get angry when he saw Iagus's expression. Instead, he said calmly, I won't let go of anyone I should find. TSK, you're just being stubborn. I don't believe that you'll continue to pester me. Let me tell you another piece of news. Iagus was a little smug. Lin Jun, you still don't know, but Anda already has 7 Imperial Jade Seals. Green also has 6. The remaining Imperial Jade Seal holders can only run for their lives every day. Who knows, one of them might get a weapon before you. The mixed Yuan armor might not belong to you. Iagus revealed a sly smile. Bye-bye, Lin Jun. Be careful. The situation of you opening the dimensional universe can be seen by others. Who knows, you might be their next target. Hee hee. Watching you guys fight with each other is also a kind of fun. Iagus closed the communication with Lin Jun proudly. He was already very satisfied that he was able to anger Lin Jun today. He thought that Lin Jun wouldn't be able to find him and he would be safe. After ending the communication, Lin Jun directly transmitted his thoughts to the treasure-hunting vine that had gained intelligence. Little Green, you often move around here. Can you find the location of Iagus? Lin Jun didn't have much hope at first, but he didn't expect Little Green to actually react. The vine shook a little and raised its small head, pointing directly in a direction. Iagus was 45,000 kilometers away from here. The location was actually at the entrance of the Red Flame volcano. Lin Jun didn't want the treasure-hunting vine to go to dangerous places. The treasure-hunting vine chose to go to places with fewer people. After walking for tens of thousands of kilometers, it actually found a cave built by Iagus at the entrance. That place had already been plundered by people. There were basically no treasures left. No one would return there. Iagus was very safe there. Interesting. You think that the most dangerous place is the safest? Fine, I'll let you know what it means to walk right into a trap. Lin Jun rose into the air. Having fused with the light chaser beast genes, he flew toward Iagus's hiding place at a speed of 100 times the speed of sound. After ending the communication with Lin Jun, Iagus immediately contacted Andamandes. Anda, I can give you Lin Jun's location, but you have to give me something in return. Andamandes' cold face appeared on the other side. When he heard Iagus' words, he coldly said, I hope you don't ask for too much. You should know that I've already obtained 7 ruler's seals. Even if I don't get the one in Lin Jun's hands, I still have hopes of collecting the ruler's equipment. But you haven't collected all of them yet. Lin Jun has come out now, and Grim has 6. There are fewer and fewer people left. If you don't get them from the 2 of them, it won't be that easy to get the 2 Imperial Jade Seals. Iagus tried his best to fight for his own benefits. Tell me your conditions. I need an alliance worth 100 million. Anda sneered. Your appetite is too big. No, my appetite isn't big at all. 100 million points is nothing compared to a top-grade armor. I need this money now. If you can't agree to this condition, I think many people are willing to negotiate with me. Anda thought for a while and decisively nodded. Fine, I agree to your conditions. I'll transfer the points to you now. Tell me Lin Zhen's location. Soon, Iagus received the transfer from Anda. He said with satisfaction, Lin Zhen is now in Qi. Before Iagus could finish his words, the hole he had painstakingly created was suddenly pierced through. With a boom, Lin Zhen had already descended from the sky and landed in front of him. At this time, Iagus was video chatting with Anda through a water mirror. Lin Zhen also saw Anda in the water mirror, and Anda also saw him. Iagus looked at Lin Zhen in disbelief. This is impossible. I'm more than 50,000 kilometers away from you, and I was just talking to you. How did you get here? How did you find my location? Lin Zhen sneered. My existence is my reason. As for how I got here, a dying person like you shouldn't care so much. Lin Zhen said and turned to look at Anda in the water mirror. Senior Anda, why do you have so much to say to this guy? Anda's expression only changed slightly at the beginning, but it soon returned to normal. He said calmly, I'm just talking about what a warrior should do. Lin Zhen, I want the Hunyuan armor. I think we can discuss and find a condition that everyone can accept. Lin Zhen smiled. What a coincidence. These are exactly what I wanted to say to Senior Anda. Why don't you give me a jade seal? If you have any conditions, I'll satisfy you as long as I can. Anda raised a finger. Lin Zhen, don't joke around. I'm about to become a divine king, and I must get the Hunyuan armor. How about this? I'll give you 100 million alliance points, and you give me the Hunyuan armor. Lin Zhen was not moved at all. Instead, he said with disdain, 100 million? I just heard that you transferred 100 million to Iagus. Do you think I'm a beggar like him? Why don't I give you 100 million? I only need 1 jade seal, and you need 2. Anda shook his head. As far as I know, your alliance points are already 0. Do you still have 100 million? I'll have it soon. Lin Zhen turned to look at Iagus, who was a little scared. Transfer the 100 million points you just obtained to Maine. Iagus was stunned for a moment, and there was some fear in his eyes. In the water mirror, Anda suddenly said, Iagus, don't be afraid. Come out and tell me where you are. Hold on for 10 minutes, and I'll ask someone to use the flying palace to help you. Hearing Andamandi's words, Iagus' eyes flashed with excitement. If he could only hold on for 10 minutes, he really had some hope. Unexpectedly, Lin Zhen suddenly attacked, and a lightning-fast punch came over. Iagus made up his mind. Although I admit that I can't beat you, Lin Zhen, you still can't defeat me in a short time. Since things had come to this, Iagus also threw caution to the wind and punched out, wanting to fight with Lin Zhen. In the end, martial artist negotiations still depended on their strength to settle things. But when their fists collided, Iagus' entire arm was completely vaporized by Lin Zhen's attack. The opponent's surging divine power came crashing over like a tsunami, and he actually couldn't block it at all. After his arm was vaporized, his body was also heavily smashed onto the wall like a painting. This is impossible, Iagus screamed, completely unable to believe what was happening in front of his eyes. Lin Zhen had advanced to mid-god, but how could he be so powerful? Lin Zhen completely ignored his thoughts and chased after him. He grabbed Iagus and pierced his early crystal formation stage mental power into his spiritual sea. Chapter 1165. Iagus was a superior god, and his mental power was close to Emerald Ray perfection. Even if it was the true Emerald Ray perfection, it would be impossible for him to use Soul Lock. However, he felt that Lin Zhen's mental power was as vast as the ocean, and his mental power was like a small puddle compared to Lin Zhen's. His will to resist was defeated, and even though he knew that Lin Zhen was going to use Soul Lock, Iagus could not resist. His body was still struggling, trying to avoid the fate of becoming a puppet. Lin Zhen could have easily killed him, but he was worried that he would kill him if he used too much force, so he took out Sun Ring. Stop struggling. Accept your fate. His mental power was released through Sun Ring, and his strength doubled again, instantly destroying all of Iagus' will to resist and directly turning him into a puppet. And all of this was done right under Andamandi's eyes. Andamandi's saw how easily Lin Jun used Soul Lock on Aegus, and his pupils shrunk for a moment. Lin Jun's strength had already exceeded his imagination, defeating Aegus in one move and using Soul Lock in an instant. Even Andamandi's would not be able to do all of these things so easily. Originally, he was arrogant when facing Lin Jun, but at this moment, he had no choice but to treat Lin Jun as an equal, and his previous contempt disappeared without a trace. Lin Jun, I think you already have the right to have a good talk with me. Lin Jun straightened his body and did not make a sound. Instead, Aegus walked over and pointed his middle finger at the water mirror. What's there to talk about with you, Scram? Oh, that's right. I'm going to transfer your 100 million points to Lin Jun. You're such a fool. Ha ha ha. The water mirror shattered under Aegus' control, and the call ended. Lin Jun could clearly see Andamandi's flustered and exasperated look at the last moment, and could not help but find it funny. Aegus, give me your points. Aegus immediately gave all his points to Lin Jun without holding back. The points of different races could also be transferred, and the prices between the races were still the same. This was also set up to maintain balance. Aegus' total points were more than 103 million. If it wasn't for the 100 million points that Anda transferred to him, he would be as poor as Lin Jun. Lin Jun was not courteous to Aegus at all. Not only did he take away all of his points, he even took over all of his assets. Aegus still had some savings. Although he did not have many points, he still had a shuttle in his hands. Lin Jun accepted it without hesitation. After doing all this, Lin Jun directly ordered Aegus to commit suicide and also contributed the divine crystals and divine stones. Aegus, who had his soul locked, did not have any will to resist. He just died in a daze and gave all of his savings to Lin Jun. With the enmity between him and Lin Jun, if it wasn't for the 100 million points that Anda gave him, Lin Jun would not have let him live for even a short while. Lin Jun originally came to kill him to vent his anger. He knew that he did not have the ruler's imperial jade seal, but he did not expect to have an unexpected gain. The points that had been reset to 0 were now more than 100 million. This gave Lin Jun a lot of confidence. At the very least, when Haiyun came to ask for money, he could take it out. I can't use this 100 million for now. I have to keep it just in case. Other than the 100 million points, the other 300,000 points could not be used for much. Lin Jun still had to go out and work hard. However, this time, Lin Jun did not plan to continue staying in the outer volcanic area. He wanted to go to the core of the Mirror Lake area. After finding the right direction, Lin Jun summoned a thundercloud and slowly moved forward. There was still a lot of time. He wanted to see if he could find any treasures on the way. In the inner part of the volcanic area, there was a passage near the edge of the Mirror Lake. Most of the warriors in the outer area would go along this passage and would not go too far from here. Suzanne's team was like this. For 17 years, Suzanne's team had been cautious and accumulated points. They had fought a few times, but fortunately, they survived. They were still at the peak of the middle god stage. It was not that easy to become a higher god. If they did not become a higher god, they could not be considered experts. They could only wander around in the outer area. However, they still had some gains. They had found a few weapons in these few years. It could be said that they had changed from bird guns to cannons. Today, they came out again and successfully found a patch of primal chaos origin stones. Suzanne's team was overjoyed. They quickly collected the primal chaos origin stones. In the end, they had close to 200 primal chaos origin stones. We're rich. These primal chaos origin stones can be exchanged for at least 10 million points. If the three of us divide them, each of us will have a few million points. Viri said happily. He glanced at Suzanne. Suzanne was wearing a golden low-grade armor. She held a golden staff in her hand and a white cloak on her back. She looked gorgeous like a war goddess. Although she was not a higher god, Suzanne's strength was still very strong among the middle gods. We're really lucky. The three of us have worked together for so many years. We have a good rapport with each other. We cooperate well in treasure, hunting, and battles. It's only right that we have these gains. Ibu said, It's a pity that we can't enter the Mirror Lake area to search. That's where the best treasures are born. Suzanne sighed. The people of the Galactic Beast Alliance have loose discipline. It's difficult to form a group. It would be better if we could follow a guild or tribe temporarily. With someone leading us, we can go to the Mirror Lake. Ibu was shocked. Suzanne, how can you have such an idea? That's not allowed by the tribe. Suzanne curled her lips in disdain. No one knows. Ibu shook his head. No, this is too serious. Suzanne, you can't decide on your own. Let's discuss it. Suzanne said unhappily. Then let's vote. It's fine as long as 2 out of the 3 of us agree. Ibu looked at Viri and felt uncertain. He thought for a moment and said, No, we have 4 people in our team. Lin Jun is not here yet. If you want to vote, let's wait for him. Don't mention Lin Jun. The guy is either dead or a deserter. It'll be over by the time he comes. Suzanne was even more unhappy. But even if we want to go, there's no one to lead us, right? Viri, who had been silent all this time, said. Suzanne said, Not necessarily. I happen to know someone called the 8 Hammers. If I beg him, maybe it'll work. Who's the 8 Hammers? It's useless if he's just a small fry. Chapter 1166. Viri and Ibu's eyes lit up when they heard Suzanne's words. Zhu Chuang was quite famous. He was the son of Iron Hammer Zhu Yuanhu, the young master of the 8 Great Hammers. Most importantly, Zhu Chuang himself was very strong. He had many glorious achievements in his cultivation. The only blemish on his achievements was when he besieged the Devil-Masked Man at the Crimson Flame volcano a few years ago. He was knocked to the ground by the Devil-Masked Man's mental attack. Although this incident affected Zhu Chuang's reputation, no one thought that he was weak. After all, the Devil-Masked Man was too strong. Even Feng Xiao, a peak high god, did not come out of the volcano, let alone Zhu Chuang, a late-stage high god. Some people even thought that Zhu Chuang had hopes of becoming a divine king in the future. They didn't expect Susanna to know such a big shot. It was really unexpected for Vieri and Roland. Vieri immediately agreed. Being able to follow Zhu Chuang into the lake would also be beneficial to the team. As long as they did not say anything, no one would know that they were working with the 8 sledgehammers at the last minute. Moreover, to warriors, their own benefits were the most important. The clan would not restrict them too much. Ibu also fell silent. It was a tacit agreement. Seeing that no one had any objections, Suzanne immediately contacted Zhu Chuang. Brother Chuang, I'm Little Na. Yes, we want to follow you into the Mirror Lake district. Yes, I know it's against the rules, but Brother Chuang, look at how poor I am. Please help me, please. Hearing Suzanne's coquettish words, Viri and Ibu's faces darkened. After a while, Zhu Chuang finally agreed to Suzanne's request. Suzanne said to Viri and Ibu happily, It's done. Brother Chuang and the others are not far away. They're also preparing to enter the lake. Let's follow them immediately. They did not take the shuttle and flew directly. 20 minutes later, they arrived at the temporary camp of the 8 Great Hammers. Zhu Chuang and the others were already waiting there. There weren't many people in the 8 Great Hammers. Including Zhu Chuang, there were only 4 people. Ordinary sect members weren't qualified to be with Zhu Chuang. The 3 people beside Zhu Chuang were also late-stage high gods. When Zhu Chuang saw Suzanne and her 2 companions, he did not introduce them. Instead, he said to Suzanne, Are there only 3 people in your party? Aren't teams usually made up of 4 people? It's like this, Brother Chuang. We have another team member, but he got separated when we came in. We haven't met him yet. Zhu Chuang nodded. That doesn't matter. 3 people it is. But if you follow me into the lake, you have to listen to me. You can't act on your own. Otherwise, you can stay here. Brother Chuang, don't worry. I know my limits. I won't cause you any trouble. Suzanne had a bright smile on her face. She walked very close to Zhu Chuang, completely ignoring Viri and Ibu's dissatisfied gazes. Zhu Chuang also smiled. Suzanne was a pretty good woman. He didn't mind having a closer relationship with her. Just as they were about to set off, one of Zhu Chuang's companions said, Young gang master, someone is coming. Zhu Chuang looked back and saw them in the distance. A cloud covered in lightning was flying towards them, following the main road. Haha, I didn't expect that there would be such an arrogant fella riding a cloud all the way here. He must be a peak high god. Let's wait and see. Suzanne and her companions stood behind Zhu Chuang and watched the cloud flying towards them. When the cloud flew closer, Susanna and the others gradually opened their mouths wide in shock. Are you kidding me? He's still alive? I thought I would never see him again. But he really doesn't know his limits. Isn't he afraid of being robbed if he rides on a cloud along the main road? Suzanne's eyes were wide open. She looked at Lin Zhen in disbelief. Lin Zhen also saw Suzanne and her companions. He was rather surprised by this group. First of all, he didn't expect to meet his 3 teammates here. More importantly, he didn't expect that his 3 teammates would be with Zhu Chuang. Lin Zhen also had a deep impression of Zhu Chuang. When Lin Zhen was besieged, he almost killed Zhu Chuang with one blow with the help of his solar ring. However, Zhu Chuang didn't know Lin Zhen. At that time, Lin Zhen was wearing a mask. Now, he wasn't wearing one. Seeing that Suzanne was about to speak, Lin Zhen spoke first. Ha ha ha, Captain Suzanne, very Ibu, long time no see. Lindsay, missed you so much. Lin Zhen greeted them and concealed his real name. He didn't want to reveal his identity in front of Zhu Chuang. Suzanne and her companions stared blankly for a moment, but then they understood what Lin Zhen meant. Suzanne frowned slightly. Lindsay, where have you been all these years? Didn't we agree to meet in half a year? Why haven't you come to find us? You even closed the dimensional universe? I went to cultivate, didn't I? Look, I'm already at the common god stage, Lin Zhen said with a smile. Susanna sized up Lin Zhen a few times. After not seeing him for so many years, Lin Zhen had improved quite a bit. He had actually crossed the barrier between a low-level god and a mid-level god. This training speed was somewhat heaven-defying. If they hadn't found Zhu Chuang and the others, Suzanne might have had a good talk with Lin Zhen. After all, Lin Zhen was also very strong. If they worked together, they would be able to obtain more treasures and points. But now, with Zhu Chuang, Suzanne had found a new thigh and was about to lead them into the lake area. As such, Lin Zhen's existence became less important. Of course, Lin Zhen could see that Suzanne was absent-minded, but he had his own plans. After greeting Ibu and Viri, Lin Zhen said, Leader, we agreed that as long as I can survive the volcanoes, you would give me a portion of the points you obtained. I've survived for 17 years. Our agreement should be honored. Suzanne remembered this matter. Back then, she thought that Lin Zhen had no hope of surviving. Suzanne was just casually mentioning it. She didn't expect Lin Zhen to remember it and come to collect the debt. It had been 17 years. The 3 of them had gained a lot and spent all their points. Now that she wanted to give a portion of the points to Lin Zhen, Suzanne was a little reluctant. She coughed awkwardly and interrupted. Let's talk about this later. Do you know who this person in front of you is? Lin Zhen glanced at Zhu Chuang and shook his head slightly. Zhu Chuang was expecting Lin Zhen to show a look of admiration, but he didn't expect this guy to not recognize him. He immediately snorted coldly. You're just a country bumpkin who hasn't seen the world. Suzanne saw that Zhu Chuang was unhappy and hurriedly said, This is the young master of the 8 great hammers. He's a super expert who will definitely become a divine king in the future. Zhu Chuang, Lin, hurry up and greet him. Lin Zhen's eyes lit up when he heard Suzanne's introduction. Zhu Chuang looked up at the sky at a 45-degree angle. He had the demeanor of an expert as he waited for Lin Zhen to greet him. He didn't expect Lin Zhen to say something like that. Chapter 1167. Hearing Lin Zhen's words, the muscles on Zhu Chuang's face twitched uncontrollably. Being knocked down by the devil-masked man's spiritual attack was an eternal pain in Zhu Chuang's heart. No one dared to mention it in front of him. He didn't expect this hothead to say it so bluntly today. Zhu Chuang's anger surged. He was about to speak when Suzanne hurriedly said, Lin, what nonsense are you talking about? There was a reason for that incident. Brother Chuang didn't have a good spiritual defense equipment, so he was ambushed by the devil-masked man. The devil-masked man is so strong that even Wind Howl died in his hands. Brother Chuang is still fine today. That means he's very capable. Worried that Zhu Chuang wouldn't take them in a mirror lake, Suzanne smiled flatteringly. Brother Chuang, don't bother with him. He's a martial arts madman who's become stupid from cultivating. He doesn't think before he speaks. You know there are many people like him. Zhu Chuang's face was very ugly. He snorted. I'm surprised that such a person can live until today. It seems like your team doesn't want to follow me in a mirror lake. The people next to Zhu Chuang agreed. So many people are begging the young master to follow them into Mirror Lake. You got such an opportunity and didn't cherish it. You're really disappointing the young master. Hearing that Zhu Chuang wasn't going to take them in, Suzanne became anxious. She turned around and said to Lin Jun, "You, come and apologize to Brother Chuang." Lin Jun narrowed his eyes. "Captain, before I apologize, what about my share of the profits?" "What profits are you talking about now? If you don't make Brother Chuang happy, I won't give you your share of the profits." Lin Jun clapped his hands. "Very well. Since the captain said so, then forget it." Seeing that Lin Jun wasn't going to apologize, Zhu Chuang was even more annoyed. He directly put pressure on Suzanne. "Suzanne, think carefully. You can follow me into Mirror Lake, but I won't take this person with me no matter what." This sentence was forcing Suzanne to break up with Lin Jun. He wanted to expel Lin Jun. Once a small team was established, expelling members was not something that could be done casually. This would result in enmity. However, Suzanne was also a decisive woman. She glanced at Lin Jun, then at Zhu Chuang, and quickly made her choice. Taking out the contract she signed with Lin Jun, Suzanne was about to tear it up in front of Lin Jun. Ibu and Viri's expressions changed drastically. After all, Lin Jun had saved their lives. They hurriedly tried to dissuade Suzanne. "Captain, you can't do this. He saved us before." Suzanne's face was as cold as ice. "That's all in the past. People always have to make choices sometimes. After so many years without him, we're still living well. Following Brother Chuang is an opportunity. Think carefully." Viri slowly lowered his hand. He still wanted to enter the lake. Ibu looked left and right for a long time. In the end, he let out a long sigh. What was done could not be undone. There was nothing he could do. The contract was torn up in Suzanne's hands. After tearing up the contract, Suzanne said coldly to Lin Jun, "Now we have nothing to do with each other. You're on your own." After saying that, she immediately went to Zhu Chuang's side. At this time, Zhu Chuang finally opened his mouth. He said to Lin Jun, "Kid, I used to hear that there are many childish people in this world. I didn't quite believe it. After all, how can people who are tens of thousands of years old be brainless? But today, after seeing you, I believe it." Lin Jun smiled. "And I originally wanted to teach you a lesson, but I decided to give face to Suzanne. The reason you're able to live until today is all because you've been in seclusion. Even if I don't do anything, you'll soon experience the cruelty of this place." After saying these words, Zhu Chuang turned to Suzanne. "Little Na, what do you think of what I'm doing?" Hearing that Zhu Chuang was giving her face, Suzanne was already a little smug. She hurriedly nodded. "Brother Chuang, you're doing very well." Zhu Chuang leaned close to her ear and said, "But there's one more thing. Your companion has already seen our cooperation, and you've already expelled him. Do you think he'll report you to your tribe out of jealousy?" Suzanne's expression changed. She was stunned on the spot. Zhu Chuang laughed. "I'll give you 10 minutes to solve it. If you can't solve it, my people will help you." After saying that, Zhu Chuang led a few people to a boulder. There, he sat down as if he was watching a show, leaving them alone to solve the problem. Suzanne's expression changed several times. She found that she had stepped on a path of no return, and there was no turning back. Zhu Chuang wanted her to kill Lin Jun. She didn't even have a choice. Ibu and Viri also looked at Suzanne with pale faces. They didn't know what choice she would make. Soon, Suzanne's conscience was overwhelmed by the benefits. She said to Ibu and Viri, "If we let Lin Jun go now, we'll be in danger. Do you think we have any other choice?" Ibu and Viri didn't say anything. Although they knew that Suzanne's choice was reasonable, their conscience hadn't completely disappeared. It was difficult for them to make a decision. Suzanne was a little anxious. She waved her hand and said, "I'll go first. If you're still my teammates, don't just stand there and watch. It's not good to be a fence-sitter." After saying that, Suzanne actually charged straight at Lin Jun. Lin Jun had been watching this scene from the sidelines. When he met Suzanne and the others, he originally wanted to help them. However, they made such a choice. That's good too. It saves me a lot of trouble. Lin Jun didn't move an inch. He stood there and waited for Suzanne to attack. At this point, Lin Jun didn't even care about Suzanne's level of strength. Before Suzanne's attack arrived, the surrounding space suddenly changed color. A layer of strange energy covered the surrounding space, turning this place and the real world into two different worlds. This is spatial energy. Lin Jun was shocked. In the Sea of Constellations region, spatial energy couldn't be used. No one could use it, and no one could teleport. However, Suzanne had obviously broken this restriction. She could actually use spatial energy here. Could this be the boundary framing ability they were talking about? It's really amazing. Swoosh! Suzanne, who was originally charging head-on, suddenly teleported and appeared beside Lin Jun. The spring-embroidered saber in her hand attacked fiercely. She swung her hand without looking back. A ball of energy exploded in Lin Jun's palm. With a loud rumble, Suzanne's figure disappeared again. The next moment, she appeared above Lin Jun's head and stabbed her saber again. Lin Jun's brows twitched slightly. Spatial ability is very amazing. Unfortunately, your realm is too low. He grabbed Suzanne's sword with one hand, and with his immortal body, he snatched the armed weapon from her hand. Suzanne didn't expect Lin Jun to be so strong. The two of them weren't on the same level at all. With a miscalculation, she was directly brought over by Lin Jun. He punched out with one hand again. Chapter 1168. The moment Suzanne fell to the ground, Zhu Chuang and the others were stunned. In their view, Suzanne and Lin Jun were both mid-gods. Even if they couldn't win, it was impossible for them to not be able to fight back. Moreover, Suzanne's world structure technique was top-notch. She was basically invincible among those of the same level. Yet, she was defeated by Lin Jun with lightning speed. It was a complete suppression. She didn't have the slightest ability to fight back. Zhu Chuang and the others instantly rushed to the front of the battlefield. Stop! Zhu Chuang was still thinking about Suzanne's secret technique. Of course, he wouldn't let Lin Jun kill Suzanne so easily. Ibu and Viri also ran to Suzanne's side and looked at Lin Jun with hostility. Looking at these people, Lin Jun sneered. What? You want to come at me together? Young man, don't be too arrogant. Do you think you're invincible just because you've been cultivating in seclusion? There are many factions here that you can't afford to offend. For example, the 8 Great Hammers. Think about it. Ha ha ha. 8 Great Hammers, how laughable. Lin Jun couldn't help but laugh. He and the 8 Great Hammers were irreconcilable enemies. Why would he care about their threats? Damn, Lindsay, what are you laughing at? Seeing that Lin Jun wasn't a threat, Zhu Chuang was furious. He's not Lindsay, he's Lin Jun. Suzanne, who had fallen to the ground, glared hatefully at Lin Jun. Since they had already shed all pretense of cordiality, she no longer had any scruples. Lin Jun. Zhu Chuang was stunned. Then, his expression changed greatly. He had never seen Lin Jun, but that didn't stop him from hearing about Lin Jun. Lin Jun was the guy who killed his friend Wang Chong. It was just that Zhu Chuang had never seen Lin Jun in person. That wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that Zhu Chuang believed that Lin Jun was most likely the devil-masked man. Although he couldn't be sure, seeing Lin Jun's reaction, there was an 80 to 90% chance that it was true. Are you? Lin Jun stretched out his hand, and a grimace mask appeared in his palm. After putting on a ghost mask, everyone present was dumbfounded. Suzanne screamed as if she had seen a ghost. Impossible. You're actually the devil-masked man? How can you be the masked man? Lin Jun glanced at the woman. Captain, do you believe that sometimes people will seek their own deaths? I originally planned to give you some benefits, but unfortunately, you made a choice that disappointed me. Not only did you not want to give me the profits that I deserved, you even drove me away. That's fine. We'll just go our separate ways. Yet you still want to get rid of me. Tell me, if this isn't seeking death, then what is? Suzanne's face was ashen. If there was a medicine for regret, she would have taken it without hesitation. If she had known that Lin Jun was the devil-masked man, she wouldn't have gone through so much trouble to find Zhu Chuan. She could have just found Lin Jun and solved everything. It was a pity that she was short-sighted. She had been guarding a golden mountain and begging for food. This time, she had really offended Lin Jun. Seeing that Zhu Chuang's face was pale and had completely lost the courage to attack Lin Jun, Suzanne knew that this person was no longer reliable. Ibu, Viri, you have a good relationship with Lin Jun. Help me persuade him. What happened just now was just a misunderstanding. I was blind. Please ask him to forgive us and let us go. Ibu and Viri wanted to say something, but Lin Jun waved his hand. You two should be glad that you didn't choose to attack me just now. Otherwise, you'd be dead by now. As for pleading for mercy, if you want to live, you'd better shut up. Ibu and Viri looked ashamed. Ibu even bowed to Lin Jun. Lin Jun, I'm sorry. I went against my conscience. I was wrong. You deserve this. After that, Ibu took out a low-grade armed armor from the celestial realm and placed it in front of Lin Jun. Then, he left without looking back. Viri gritted his teeth and took out 2 low-grade armed armor weapons. These were almost all he had. After giving them to Lin Jun, he also left. Lin Jun took the weapons without hesitation. At least these 2 people still had a conscience. He didn't want to kill them. But these people in front of him weren't as lucky as Ibu and Viri. When Lin Jun's gaze turned to them, Zhu Chuang and the others attacked almost at the same time. For late-stage high gods, their combat strength couldn't be underestimated. Even a peak high god might be defeated. However, their attacks were simply child's play in front of the current Lin Jun. More than 4 million points of divine power erupted. Lin Jun's Star Soul Spear knocked all 4 of them to the ground. He walked over and used Soul Lock on them one by one. Lin Jun had tasted the sweetness. He wanted these people to transfer all their points to him. With the appearance of the Solar Ring, these people didn't have the strength to resist at all. Soon, they were captured by Lin Jun, including Zhu Chuang. The 4 people handed all their points and treasures to Lin Jun. A shield god worship was worth 33 million points, as well as several treasures for divinity crystals and a pile of divinity stones. In Lin Jun's eyes, Zhu Chuang, the young master, didn't receive any preferential treatment. After handing over the items, Lin Jun ordered him to commit suicide. Seeing the 4 high gods being manipulated by Lin Jun to commit suicide like puppets, Suzanne's eyes revealed a look of despair. But she still wanted to try one last time. She stood up with all her might, wanting to use her womanly talent to seduce Lin Jun. Lin Jun sneered and suddenly opened his mouth. A black hole appeared, trying in vain to use your laughable looks to seduce me. You should first understand the quality of my, Lin Jun's, women. Don't you think this is too laughable? Death ripples spread out. Suzanne was directly turned into neutron material by Lin Jun's black hole. Her soul left her body. Lin Jun directly searched her soul. Suzanne's wealth was almost negligible. However, Lin Jun was slightly tempted by her absolute art of spatial composition. If Suzanne hadn't tried to harm Lin Jun wouldn't have killed her. But now he had no more scruples. For a penny, for a pound. A wave of memories surged into Lin Jun's mind. He immediately discarded all the useless memories, leaving only the part related to the absolute art of spatial composition. Suzanne's true form was a starry sky, illusionary butterfly. She was born with an outstanding understanding of space. Later on, she coincidentally obtained this technique. After many years of hard work, she finally mastered a powerful spatial ability. But now, Lin Jun had benefited from it. Impressive. What a good battle technique. To think that there's such a profound, absolute art of spatial composition in this world. It can actually be used in the sea of constellations. Looks like I'll need a few days to comprehend it. Ha ha ha. Once I master this move, it won't be a dream to recreate the spatial ability I had back in the new territories. Lin Jun raised his hand and wiped away all traces of the battlefield. Then, he immediately flew into the mouth of a volcano at the side. The mysterious yellow pagoda appeared above his head and blocked off the volcano's energy. After the lightning cloak covered him, Lin Jun completely disappeared into the volcano. Chapter 1169. Lin Jun could be said to be the strongest he'd ever been in his life. Not only had his cultivation base increased, but his god power and mind power were strong as well. What he lacked was a battle tactic that could catch his opponent off guard. Back in the new territories, Lin Jun relied on his understanding of space power and his teleportation absolute art to become invincible. He was also the most proficient in this type of battle tactic. However, he wasn't so smart after he arrived in the primordial realm. When he arrived at the Fiend Star and the Sea of Constellations, he was even more clueless. He had only cultivated for a short period of time, so he didn't have the time to learn high-end battle tactics, especially such an unbelievably complicated battle tactic like space. This time, Suzanne's memories were of great help to Lin Jun. Her understanding of space had all become Lin Jun's own abilities. Lin Jun stayed in the volcano for a whole month before he completely absorbed Suzanne's memories of space power. A month later, swoosh, Lin Jun's figure appeared out of thin air at the volcano's mouth. Ha ha ha, it's done. Lin Jun had finally learned Suzanne's boundary construct absolute art completely. This move relied on god power and his understanding of space laws to create a domain-like space. This was the so-called boundary construct. Moreover, it was different from other domains. The space was almost impossible to break. Back when Lin Jun shattered Suzanne's space with a single punch, it was because the difference in their strength was too great. If it was Lin Jun who performed it, no one would be able to break through Lin Jun's move other than sovereigns or top-notch divine kings. Lin Jun even improved Suzanne's boundary construct with his own creativity. Now, Lin Jun didn't have to create a large domain to perform this move. As long as he was within this range, Lin Jun could teleport as he wished. Suzanne's teleportation could be carried out within a diameter of 1 kilometer, while Lin Jun's divine power could be carried out at will within a diameter of 100 kilometers. From this, it could be seen that the difference in strength between Lin Jun and Suzanne was huge. With a diameter of 100 kilometers, it would be of great help in battle. However, this is under the condition that I don't have any domain equipment. If I have a low-grade domain equipment, this number would be increased by at least 10 times. If it's a mid-tier domain type, it'll be 100 times stronger. Lin Jun's thirst for more points grew. Flying type equipment and domain type equipment. These two relatively rare items were what Lin Jun urgently needed at the moment. Then there were the combat type palaces, as well as the flying palaces that Lin Jun didn't dare to dream of. However, after the last plundering, Lin Jun was no longer considered poor. Other than the 100 million points that he didn't dare to touch for the time being, Lin Jun had another 33 million points in his hands. These were all transferred to him by Zhu Chuang and the others. After Lin Jun finished cultivating, he donated all the things he had obtained, including the more valuable divine shield worship. He once again obtained close to 20 million points, bringing the points in his hands to 52 million. Now, Lin Jun could already exchange for the worst flying type equipment. Lin Jun excitedly opened the clan's store. He remembered that there were 2 flying type equipment here. One was a low-grade windwalking wings, 50 million points, and the other was a mid-grade wildfire wings, 120 million points. However, when Lin Jun looked again, he realized that the windwalking wings had been exchanged for by someone else. Damn it, I'm actually late. Lin Jun was a little annoyed. He felt that there was nothing more annoying than having money in his hands but not being able to spend it. Since he couldn't get the windwalking wings, Lin Jun's gaze turned and fell on the wildfire wings. He had more than 150 million points in his hands, which could be exchanged for the mid-grade wings. Do you want to take this thing? Lin Jun was tempted. Just as he was hesitating, Hai Yun suddenly sent a message to Lin Jun. Lin Jun, you're finally out of seclusion. I've been looking for you for a long time. What's wrong, Miss Hai Yun? What else could it be? The clan found out that I was informing you, so 100 million points will be deducted. If I couldn't find you, I would have gone bankrupt. Lin Jun slapped his thigh. Sigh, what a bad time to come. Lin Jun, don't scare me. I can't take out this money. No. Don't worry, Miss Hai Yun. I won't make things difficult for you. Lin Jun reluctantly transferred the 100 million points in his hands to Hai Yun, which solved her urgent problem. However, this way, the idea of exchanging for the wildfire wings became a dream. Forget it. Now that I've completed the fusion with the light-chasing beast gene, my speed has increased tenfold. I can already fly at 100 times the speed of sound in the Mirror Lake continent. I can also teleport within 100 kilometers. Finding treasures is no longer a difficult task. I believe I'll be able to earn more points soon. Lin Jun comforted himself, but he was still a little unwilling. Just as Hai Yun was about to close the dimensional universe communication, Lin Jun suddenly asked, Hai Yun, if I ask you if there are any good wings for sale in other clans, can you find them for me? Hai Yun nodded. I can find them. Lin Jun hurriedly said, you won't deduct any more points, right? Hee. You're scared of the deduction, right? Don't worry. You only need to pay 100,000 points to find them. 100,000 points was not a small number for ordinary warriors, but Lin Jun had some savings at the moment, so he did not care at all. He immediately paid the points and asked Hai Yun to let him check. Soon, Hai Yun sent back a string of information. Sakura Alliance clans have a low-grade wing for sale. In the dimensional arena, there's a middle-grade feather for sale. Among the 8 great hammers, there are 2 low-grade wings for sale. The Northern Territory Alliance has a pair of low-grade wings and a pair of high-grade wings for sale. Lin Jun's eyes lit up. How many points do you need for a high-grade wing? Not much, just 500 million. Lin Jun swallowed a mouthful of saliva. 500 million. Okay, that's it. After closing the dimensional universe communication with Hai Yun, Lin Jun straightened his back. It's just 500 million. Lin Jun, did not want to go too far in the past, and I know how to restrain myself. But these alliances participated in besieging me at Scarlet Flame Volcano. Then, I'm sorry, but you will face Lin Jun's most ruthless revenge. Lin Jun's current strength was profound, and he had countless means. With the Sun Ring's soul lock, no one below Divine King could stop him. He had made up his mind to go all out, and it would be a disaster for the people of these gangs. After so many years of bitter training, Lin Jun no longer suppressed his nature, and he had already revealed his black hole beast's sharp fangs. Those people who had dealt with me, the Devil Masked Men, are back. Whether it is treasures or people, in the eyes of Lin Jun, they are all points. Thunderclouds rose into the sky, and countless lightning bolts lashed out in all directions. Chapter 1170. The volcanic area extended toward the lake area, and the terrain gradually leveled off. This was a buffer zone. At the foot of the mountain, for superior gods of the Northern Regions Alliance were searching for treasures. The leader of the group belonged to the demon race. He had long dark green hair and a pair of purple eyes that flickered with a dim light. His valiant muscles had explosive power, and it showed that he was at the peak of his strength. The other 3 superior gods were also demon race warriors, and they were following the superior god in front of them to search for treasures. Be careful. Don't miss a single primal chaos origin stone. These are all points. The leader shouted loudly, and everyone released their mental energy to the maximum. One of the demon race warriors raised his head and looked toward the sky. The leader shouted angrily, "What are you doing? Big brother, I feel uneasy in my heart." The few of them stopped at the same time. This demon race warrior was from the hidden devil race, and he was born with a premonition of danger. If he felt uneasy, then maybe something really happened. The hidden devil race warrior's long ears moved, and he suddenly pointed in the direction of the main road. Someone is coming, and he has a very strong, baleful aura. The few of them turned around and looked in the direction he was pointing. After less than 5 seconds, someone really appeared. Their vision was very good, and they could see up to 100 kilometers away. 100 kilometers away, a dark cloud was quickly floating over from the horizon. Within the cloud layer, golden snakes danced wildly, and lightning flashed chaotically. From time to time, a bolt of lightning would flow out and rumble as it struck the ground. F*CK. Who the F*CK is this? He is too arrogant. This place is close to the lake area, and someone is actually in such a hurry. Isn't he afraid that a few experts will come out and kill him? The leader was a superior god of the demon race, and he was also a very violent and fierce person. He was searching for treasures in this small buffer zone, and when other small teams saw him, they would usually take a detour. They were originally a brutal race, and even a superior god of the demon race had his pride and dignity. How could he allow someone to behave so atrociously here? How dare you? Brothers, get ready to kill him and snatch his treasures. The few demons fanned out and prepared to attack. But just as they fanned out, suddenly, a beam of mental energy pierced through the air. The head of the hidden devil race warrior with sensitive senses, who was right next to the leader, exploded on the spot. Divine might and will of heaven. One had to know that the person who came was still 100 kilometers away. To be able to use the divine might of heaven's will to kill people from such a far distance was completely inconceivable. God's might heaven's will was the upgraded version of mental attack. However, its might wasn't as good as that of a close-range mental attack. It was generally used by the strong to deal with the weak. However, that hidden devil clansman was a late-stage high god. Could it be that the person who had come was a god king? Before the demons could make a judgment, the newcomer had already arrived. Standing on a thundercloud and wearing a ghost mask, a dense killing intent surged out from his body. Devil-masked man. One of the demons screamed in fear and couldn't help but take a step back. Sure enough, it was the devil-masked man. Moreover, there was a ring emitting the light of the sun floating in front of his chest. That was a mid-grade spiritual power equipment, Sun Ring. It turned out that he had borrowed the power of the Sun Ring. No wonder he could kill people from a distance with the power of the mandate of heaven. That leader was furious. He bellowed at Lin Jun, Devil-masked man, you dare to kill the people of my Northern Region's alliance? The devil-masked man stood on a cloud and sneered. It's not that I want to kill him. I originally wanted to knock him out. Unfortunately, this guy was too weak. He died with a light touch. I hope you guys won't die so quickly. Roar. You've gone too far. Attack. The remaining 3 demons swarmed forward. Their soaring demonic energy couldn't be underestimated. The 3 attacks formed a powerful shockwave that whizzed towards Lin Jun. Lin Jun disappeared the moment the attacks were about to reach him. The next moment, he appeared behind one of the demons. Then he brandished his hand and knocked that demon to the ground. Another demon turned around to rescue him. But as soon as he turned around, Lin Jun appeared behind him again. Lin Jun slapped him with his palm. His palm was as heavy as a 1,000-gene hammer. It almost killed that demon on the spot. However, Lin Jun controlled his strength. He didn't kill anyone this time. Impossible. You can actually teleport. The demon leader roared in horror. He couldn't help but retreat. Against a devil-masked man who could teleport, even if he had the strength, he wouldn't have the chance to use it. Lin Jun sneered. His body left a series of afterimages in the air as he quickly closed in on that demon. The 2 of them exchanged blows in the air. Powerful divine power collided and created a series of loud explosions. The demon leader activated his god's domain and fused with his god doppelganger. His divine power was as high as 3 million. However, he was completely suppressed. He was suppressed to the point where he almost couldn't fight back. After a few exchanges, he felt his arm go limp. His opponent's attacks had exceeded his tolerance limit. Spare me. He didn't have that much backbone, especially when facing the devil-masked man who was infamous in the Mirror Lake continent. He was terrified. Lin Jun saw that his opponent's will to resist dissipated. Then, he attacked him with a mental attack. The leader of the demon clan fell on his back, and Lin Jun followed him like a shadow. Soul lock. It wasn't easy to lock the soul of a high god at his peak. Lin Jun had to first break down his mental resistance. After a mental attack, a sun ring appeared and his mental strength skyrocketed. As the demon leader's eyes flickered, his mental strength finally couldn't resist Lin Jun's attack. His soul was locked. After dealing with this demon, Lin Jun immediately pulled over the 2 people he had knocked out. He did the same thing and successfully locked their souls. Hand over all your points. Lin Jun ordered coldly. The three of them started transferring points to Lin Jun. The two late-stage high gods handed over 18 million points to Lin Jun. Meanwhile, the demon leader at his peak had 20 million points. After obtaining 38 million points, Lin Jun ordered the two late-stage high gods to commit suicide and transferred all their assets to him. As for the remaining peak high god leader, Lin Jun thought for a moment and decided not to let him commit suicide. "What's your name?" "Master, I'm called Owl." "Only one word." "No. Demons have long names, but they can also be simplified into one word." "Master, do you want to know my full name?" "No need. I'll just call you Owl." Lin Jun thought for a moment. "I need points now. Do you know what to do?" Owl nodded and said, "Understood. I'll tell you the locations of some people I know. I'll also take the initiative to borrow points. I'll borrow as many points as I can and transfer them all to you." Lin Jun laughed heartily. What a loyal subordinate this was. He actually came up with the idea of borrowing points. Creative. I like it. Chapter 1171. After Owl's soul was locked, he quickly got into character and began to borrow points everywhere. In just one day, all of his friends and acquaintances had been borrowed by him. This person was completely holding the mentality of a one-time deal, borrowing as much as he could. In the end, ordinary people could no longer borrow from him. He simply paid high interest and signed huge contracts to borrow from others. Many people were tempted. With the contracts, the records of the dimensional universe, and the approval of the race, they were not afraid that he would not return. But no one would have thought that Owl just did not want to return. After borrowing, he would die. What could they do? Under the efforts of such a swindler, he actually obtained a huge sum of 240 million points in one day. By the time the Northern Regions Alliance discovered that there was a problem with Owl's abnormal borrowing, Owl's account had been cleared to zero. Not a single point was left. They had all been transferred away. By the time these creditors locked onto Owl's location and chased after him, they only found a corpse. Who would have thought that a high god who had trained to the peak of power would die just like that? His soul was destroyed, and there was no possibility of resurrection. People did not even know why he died. Now, no one would have thought that his soul would be locked. As a peak superior god, the possibility of his soul being locked was very small. Even an expert at the level of a deity king would find it difficult to lock his soul. Therefore, no one thought about this. The only clue was where Owl's 200 million points had been transferred to. It was not easy to check the transfer records from the Dimensional Universe Corporation. The Northern Regions Alliance's higher-ups came forward and checked the records. The results of the check shocked everyone. Owl's last transfer record was actually transferred to Lin Jun. In an instant, Lin Jun's name became a hot topic. A lot of information about Lin Jun was dug up. After summarizing all the information, people were shocked to discover that Lin Jun was very likely the Devil-Masked Man. The Devil-Masked Man was still alive. This discovery shocked the higher-ups of the Northern Regions Alliance. Thinking of the grudge between the Devil-Masked Men and the Alliance, they felt that the problem was serious. They requested the Dimensional Universe Corporation to freeze Lin Jun's race points account, but this was simply impossible. The Dimensional Universe Corporation would not be manipulated by anyone. Moreover, this matter had to be done through the Galactic Beast Alliance, which was simply impossible. The Northern Regions Alliance had no choice but to issue a notice that anyone who wanted to borrow points had to do so under the Alliance's supervision. This was to prevent similar situations from happening and people from being cheated. They also informed the guilds that had surrounded Lin Jun at the Scarlet Flame volcano that the masked men had reappeared. While Owl was swindling people in the Northern Regions Alliance, Lin Jun didn't wait by his side at all. Instead, he continued to move forward and went deep into the Mirror Lake border area. It would take several days to fly across the buffer zone. On the second day, Lin Jun received the points from Owl. 240 million. Lin Jun was overjoyed. He didn't expect this guy to be so capable. Under the circumstances where he had cut off all means of retreat to accumulate wealth, he was actually able to collect more than 200 million points. However, this was only a one-time transaction. This person's situation was bound to attract attention. Now that the Galactic Beast Alliance had issued a notice to warn everyone to be cautious about borrowing points, it would probably be difficult to pull off this trick again. However, with more than 200 million points added to Lin Jun's current points, he now had 280 million points. He wasn't far from a top-grade flying equipment. The Northern Regions Alliance also acted quickly. They actually found out a lot of things in such a short period of time. By now, all the guilds and alliances probably knew that Lin Jun was the devil-masked man. However, Lin Jun didn't care. Knowing was just a matter of time. Whether or not it would be of any use was another matter. Along with the transfer of points, there was also a report on Owl's investigation. There was a group of people listed in it. These were the people who had participated in the siege of Lin Jun at the Scarlet Flame volcano. As a peak high-level deity, Owl naturally had many channels. He roughly knew where these people were active, and he sent them to Lin Jun. Northern Regions Alliance's Feeney, Heavenly Imperial Alliance's Jiangchao, Dimensional Arena's Osto, and Green Tiger Gang's Star Spirit. At that time, there were also Cherry Blossom's Feng Xiao and 8 Great Hammers Zhu Chuang, but both of them had been killed by Lin Jun. All right, when you besieged me, you didn't expect me to come back, did you? Lin Jun quickly locked onto the first person, Green Tiger Gang's Star Spirit. Star Spirit was located at the edge of the Mirror Lake. There was a shield god worship and a small team of 12 people. It was about 1,300,000 kilometers away from Lin Jun's current location. The small team of 12 was made up of late-stage high gods and above. It could be considered an elite team. 1,300,000 kilometers. With my current speed, I can reach it in a day. My next target is the Green Tiger Gang. Although the Mirror Lake was not as boundless as the Fallen Star Lake, it was still much larger than the Pacific Ocean. Although the surface of the lake was huge, the surface of the water was calm, without any ripples. It was like an incomparably huge mirror, a stark contrast to the rumbling volcanic area outside. In the Mirror Lake area, the treasures that had been erupted by the volcanoes for countless years had basically sunk into the lake water. It was a huge treasure bowl. However, the Mirror Lake area had already been occupied by experts. When the Mirror Lake mainland opened, 2 divine kings flying palaces directly entered the lake. No matter what those people did outside, the depths of the lake were the territory of the divine kings. The peak high god teams that piloted the free satellites were in the shallow waters of the lake. There were also treasures here, but not as many as in the depths. It was still a good place. Further out was the edge of the lakeside area. Those who could hunt for treasures here were mostly teams piloting divine shield warships. There were also many opportunities near the lakeside area. When the lake water rose, it was possible that the treasures would be washed to the beach. When the tide receded, there would often be a harvest. However, the water in the Mirror Lake was very dense. Ordinary winds could not move the lake water at all. When the tide rose, there were not many treasure hunting teams here. It was very difficult to enter the Mirror Lake to hunt for treasures. The chaotic energy had drifted into the Mirror Lake for many years, causing the water inside the Mirror Lake to be very corrosive. If one wanted to enter the lake, one would need a domain-type treasure or an underwater thruster with an energy shield. Domain-type treasures were too rare. They were basically negligible. As for underwater thrusters, they were not something that ordinary people could afford. Every time one entered the water, it would consume a large amount of energy. Only the strong teams in the depths of the lake would use them. For teams at the edge, entering the water recklessly would not be worth the loss. Therefore, the teams at the edge of the lake were basically idle before the tide receded. The Green Tiger Gang's team was currently resting. Star Spirit was the leader of the 12-man team. He was looking at a message sent by a friend from the Northern Regions Alliance. Chapter 1172. The name Devil Masked Man gave Star Spirit too many bad memories. Back at the Red Flame volcano, he had participated in the siege of Devil Masked Man. Unfortunately, the 6 of them were unable to capture Devil Masked Man. Instead, they had lost Feng Xiao. They thought that Devil Masked Man had died in the volcano. They did not expect to see news of him again today. The news was sent by a warrior from the Northern Regions Alliance. It was a simple message with only a few sentences. Devil Masked Man has reappeared. His identity has been confirmed. His real name is Lin Jun. Everyone, please be careful. Star Spirit was not unfamiliar with Lin Jun. He was one of the suspects back then. He could even recite some information about Lin Jun. Late-stage lower god, from the demonic planet, good at using spears, black hole beast. The only thing worth noting was the black hole beast. Other than that, this person was not worth mentioning. Lower god, devil masked man? That's nonsense. Star Spirit believed that devil masked man was alive, but he did not believe that Lin Jun was devil masked man. However, he was still cautious. He said to his subordinates, "Everyone, be careful. I heard that devil masked man has reappeared. He might take revenge for what happened back then." "Boss, I don't think there's anything to worry about. Didn't the six of you blast devil masked man into the volcano? At that time, you were only a peak higher god. You were not afraid of devil masked man. Now that the 12 of us are together, devil masked man won't dare to come and seek death." That's right. Devil masked man must have been taught a lesson. If he knows his limits, he should learn to keep a low profile. If he dares to come to the lake, I'm afraid he will be dismembered in an instant. Star Spirit nodded and did not take it to heart. The group of 12 people occupied a sandy beach area. It was very important to occupy a good position because when the tide came in, experienced people would be able to find traces of treasures in the tide in advance. After seeing the treasures, they would determine the location of the treasures and send people to guard the area. Once the tide receded, they would go down to look for the treasures immediately. Those who were close to the treasure would have a chance to reap the rewards. Here, treasure hunting was all about having sharp eyes and quick hands. Of course, if 2 or more people fancied the same item in the same place, then there might be a fight when the treasure was born. Anyway, they were all martial artists, so fighting was a common thing. As time passed, a cold wind blew. The tide is rising. On the surface of the lake in the distance, a huge storm was brewing. The mirror-like surface of the lake was shattered, and the blue lake water rolled up huge waves, crashing towards the shore. Everyone stood up and stretched their necks to look into the lake. Occasionally, there would be some glimmers of treasures within the waves, causing these people to drool with desire. However, no one dared to rashly go over. The treasure had not sunk yet, so there was no way to harvest it. Moreover, if they went over at this time, the blue lake water would definitely melt them into nothingness in a second. Only pure energy shields could withstand the onslaught of the waves or domain equipment. Wave after wave of waves came crashing over, submerging large areas of land. On Earth, a high tide that could extend up to 100 meters was already considered a short distance. However, the high tide here raised the sea level by more than 100 meters and extended up to 100 kilometers. The small teams on the shore retreated one after another. They only stopped when the tide no longer spread forward. Star Spirit quickly arranged for everyone to get ready. This storm will pass in about 5 hours. Everyone get ready. Here, and there. These areas have to be searched carefully. We can't waste any time. There might be treasures in these areas. His subordinates nodded and rose into the air, waiting at the location that Star Spirit pointed out. Some of these places were empty, while some were occupied. However, they might not necessarily be able to find treasures by waiting there. Most people would still return empty-handed, because no one could really see where the treasures were. After assigning the tasks to the others, Star Spirit himself locked onto a location. This was the place that he focused his attention on, because when the waves crashed over, he saw a black strip of treasure light. The intensity of the light was not something an ordinary low-grade equipment could compare to. It was at least a middle-grade equipment. This was an extremely rare opportunity. Star Spirit was determined to get this treasure. After looking around and seeing that no one else seemed to have noticed this location, Star Spirit was overjoyed. He rose into the air and circled around the area. One by one, the silhouettes hovered above the lake like birds, waiting for the moment the tide receded to reveal the result. Time moved forward with difficulty, and 5 hours slowly passed. As expected, the storm gradually receded. After losing the power of the storm, the lake began to recede. The people in the sky were like arrows that were pulled to the bow. swooping down at any moment. When the tide receded, there were no fishes or prawns in the water. However, there was a treasure light that shot up into the sky. A few kilometers away, a superior god let out a cry and rushed down. The moment the treasure light appeared, he grabbed the treasure high up in the air. Ha ha! Thunder battle axe, low-grade equipment. This god fiercely waved his fist at his teammates. The people who were with him immediately burst into cheers. The first item was an equipment. It seemed to indicate that there might be something good in today's tide receding. While the others were envious, they patiently guarded the location that they had chosen. More than 10 kilometers away from Star Spirit, there was another flash of light. The people who had been guarding there long ago swooped down. Those who were far away had no chance at all. Sigh, it's just a boundary stone. This person rose into the air but only obtained a boundary stone. His face was filled with depression. Actually, this was a very common thing. In fact, most of the time, the things that were painstakingly found were usually boundary stones or primal chaos origin stones. There were even more people who found nothing. The underwater area that they had chosen did not have any treasures at all. The tide continued to recede. More and more people found nothing. Star Spirit looked at the few locations that he had chosen and did not find any treasures. A few of his teammates revealed disappointed expressions. About 10 kilometers away, someone found a low-grade battle armor. This caused a burst of cheers. The tide was about to recede to where he was standing. Star Spirit took a deep breath. He had a premonition that this time, he would definitely have a harvest. Splash! As the water splashed, the original ground was revealed. A dim light flickered, causing one soul to flicker. A 5-foot-long green sword flickered. The biting cold aura could be clearly felt even in the sky. That was the aura of a treasure. It was a high-grade longsword. F***CK. A high-grade weapon. This daddy is rich. Star Spirit was extremely excited. The preciousness of a high-grade weapon was self-evident. With such a long sword, why would he be afraid of the devil-masked man? Moreover, he was the only one guarding this area. This high-grade weapon was going to be his. Chapter 1173. A high-grade weapon was something all gods yearned for. High-grade weapons were not something high gods like them had the right to obtain. They were exclusive to god kings or dominators. There were even many god kings who used high-grade weapons. For high gods, this was the ultimate weapon. Although it was not as precious as domain weapons, it was essential. Star Spirit felt that his heart was about to jump out of his chest. He reached out with one hand. As long as he moved forward a little more, he would be able to grab this extraordinary longsword. There was a phrase called "so close yet worlds apart." Star Spirit had experienced it. Just as his hand was about to grab the sword, a strong force suddenly came from behind his neck and lifted him up. Boo! Star Spirit could only feel sweat on the back of his neck. He did not notice anyone. He turned around abruptly, but the force suddenly increased and threw him to the side. His body landed heavily on the beach. Although he jumped up, the longsword had already changed hands. A mid-god was standing behind him, holding the longsword in his hand and smiling. Following you for half a day was not in vain. I did not expect that your ability to find treasures is not bad, but your ability to find treasures is not bad. I will kindly accept this sword. Star Spirit did not recognize this person, but it did not prevent him from sensing the other party's powerful divine power. You don't recognize me? Then you should recognize this. The person opposite him took out a ghost mask and put it on his face. Ghost masked man. Star Spirit's body trembled and almost instantly entered battle mode. He called out loudly to his companions. Come quickly. The ghost masked man has appeared and snatched my longsword. More than a dozen high gods of the Green Tiger Gang surrounded him. Seeing that there was a fight here, the others distanced themselves a little and watched. Seeing that his companions had come to his side, Star Spirit felt a little more confident. The ghost masked man only knew how to hide himself. Now that he had 12 people on his side, there was no need to be afraid of him. You are Lin Jun? Star Spirit asked. The ghost masked man stroked the long sword in his hand and did not respond to Star Spirit's question. The ghost masked man was naturally Lin Jun. Looking at the long sword, he felt a little excited. During this period of time, Lin Jun's weapon had always been a spear. It was not that he only knew how to use a spear, but that he did not have a suitable sword. This sword, which was more than 5 feet long, was actually a high-grade weapon. It could completely make up for Lin Jun's regret of not having a good weapon. The blade of his sword was completely black, and when he held it in his hand, he felt a bone-chilling coldness. There were a few words on it. Jackdaw of the 18 godly swords. Seeing these words, Lin Jun's pupils, of course. It was actually one of the 18 swords. Even though Lin Jun had just arrived at Mirror Lake, he knew about the 18 godly swords. According to legend, these 18 swords were the weapons of the 100-bird sovereign. They were made up of 18 swords and a sword box. Each sword had been personally forged by the 100-bird hegemon, and sealed within each sword was the artifact spirit of an extremely powerful bird. Hegemon Allbird himself was even more incredible. He had once been a mighty chaos hegemon. There were 81 sovereigns in the universe. There were 9 sovereigns in each of the 8 major elements, making a total of 72 sovereigns. The remaining 9 sovereigns were proficient in other systems, such as space power, time power, chaos power, darkness power, and so on. These people who cultivated special powers were collectively known as the primordial chaos sovereign. The 100-bird hegemon was such a person. He stood at the very pinnacle of the universe. However, such a powerful person had fallen in the end. No one knew where his 18 swords and sword sheath had gone. He hadn't expected Lin Jun to get his hands on a Jackdaw godly sword. It contained the soul of a super mutant galactic beast, Jackdaw. If the user was proficient in the use of ice energy, the sword's power would be multiplied. This was the combination of attributes. Furthermore, this sword was very difficult to damage. Even if it was damaged, the sword soul would slowly repair it. Holding the sword, Lin Jun couldn't help but laugh. Ha ha! This is truly a case of wearing out iron shoes in a fruitless search. I didn't expect to actually find such a good sword here. As a token of gratitude, I've decided to use this sword to personally send you on your way. What? You're saying this is one of the 18 swords? F***CK. Devil Masked Man, I'll kill you. Go. Kill him, and take the sword back. How dare you steal from the Green Tiger Gang? You'll pay with your life. The eyes of the 12 high gods, including Star Spirit, turned red. They charged at Han Shuo from all directions. If it were any other time, Lin Jun would have to struggle for a while to deal with these 12 high gods. However, today was different. With a single finger, the mysterious yellow pagoda appeared above his head, isolating him from all the energy attacks. Lin Jun activated his fusion domain. Wielding the Jackdaw godly sword, his first target was a peak high god. Although this high god wasn't the leader, he was definitely one of the top 3 high gods. Cold. Within Lin Jun's divine world, a wave of absolute zero energy shot out with the Jackdaw godly sword. Instantly, a white mist appeared between heaven and earth, whistling past the high god. Normally, using absolute zero consumed a lot of divine power. Moreover, the attack range was also very short, so it was very difficult for it to deal much damage. However, today was different. With Jackdaw's buff, Lin Jun's attack traveled thousands of meters. The white mist retreated. The high god's body turned into an ice sculpture, then suddenly shattered and exploded. A peak high god had been killed by Lin Jun in one blow. After succeeding in one move, Lin Jun's confidence soared. He laughed loudly and charged into the enemy's group. The Jackdaw godly sword in his hand glowed with white light as he unleashed it like a gust of wind. Limitless swordsmanship, which he hadn't used in a long time, was finally put to good use. There were a dozen high gods, but Lin Jun had slaughtered them to the point where they couldn't even raise their heads. Their weapons couldn't withstand Jackdaw's attacks at all. Every time their weapons came into contact, their weapons would weaken. If they weren't armed, they'd simply be destroyed. Even low-grade weapons couldn't withstand more than a few blows for Jackdaw. Their weapons weren't strong enough, and their long-range energy attacks couldn't break through the mysterious yellow pagoda's defenses. They could only fight in close quarters, and Lin Jun was slaughtering them all. This was the power of armed equipment. 12 high gods had been slaughtered by an early-stage mid-god. Apart from Lin Zhun's immense divine power, his armed equipment also played a major role. As soon as Jackdaw was in his hand, blood spilled. One high god after another fell to Lin Zhun's sword. The onlookers in the distance couldn't help but retreat in fright when they saw the demon-masked man's massacre. Although they didn't know what was going on, the current situation was enough to prove that the demon-masked man's ferocious reputation wasn't just for show. He killed without batting an eyelid. In 3 minutes, Lin Zhun had killed 11 people in a row. Chapter 1174. Star Spirit wanted to escape, but after Lin Zhun fused with the Light Chaser Beast genes, Star Spirit, who didn't have any flying equipment, was as slow as a snail in his eyes. He had no chance of escaping at all. Seeing 11 people being killed in succession, Star Spirit was about to collapse when Lin Zhun's Jackdaw attacked again. His knees were a little weak. Feeling the other party's aura, he chose to surrender. Lin Zhun looked at the people watching from afar. Knowing that time was of the essence, he placed Jackdaw on Star Spirit's neck and demanded that he hand over all his assets. Star Spirit was overjoyed. Thinking that Lin Zhun would spare his life, he immediately handed over all his wealth without holding back. Star Spirit was also the young leader of the Green Tiger Gang. He still had some savings. He actually had more than 40 million tri-points. After obtaining Star Spirit's points, Lin Zhun's points reached 320 million. There were also some more valuable items, such as the shield warship. Lin Zhun took them without hesitation. However, Lin Zhun didn't choose to let him go. After taking the items, he immediately took action and eliminated this young leader. After doing all this, the tide was about to recede. Lin Zhun held the Jackdaw sword in his hand. When the surrounding people saw him, they couldn't help but retreat, afraid that this notorious guy would kill indiscriminately. Lin Zhun laughed. "Don't worry. The only people I want to kill are my enemies, those who participated in the siege of Red Flame Volcano." After saying that, Lin Zhun quickly flew along the beach, heading straight for his second target. There was another person in the sandy beach area by the lake. It was Osto from the Dimensional Arena. Osto was less than 200,000 kilometers away. With the Light Chaser Beast genes, Lin Zhun's flying speed was almost comparable to a low-grade flying equipment. He was very fast in the sandy beach area. He would definitely arrive in half an hour. However, he was not as fast as the communication in the dimensional universe. Before he could reach Osto's location, the man had already received the news. Oster's group was also a group of 12, and all of them were peak high gods. They had been through a treasure hunt, and 5 of them had died. Now, there were only 7 of them left. They could no longer maintain a foothold in the shallow waters, so they retreated to the beach area. The warriors in the dimensional arena were all battle-hardened. Although there were only 7 of them, their strength was definitely above the 12 from Star Spirit. Osto was stunned when he heard the news about the masked man Lin Zhun. To be able to single-handedly defeat Star Spirit's team, this masked man's strength is almost at the level of a divine king. Wanting to become a godly king had extremely high standards. Firstly, his mental strength had to reach the crystal formation realm. This was the most crucial point. If one couldn't reach this point, it didn't matter how much divine power one had. This was the most important criterion. Other than the requirement of spiritual power, to reach the level of a god king, one would need to have at least 3 million points of divine power. This 3 million was not the value after fusing with a doppelganger and activating a domain, but the value under normal circumstances. There was another very important factor, and that was battle achievements and fame. Battle achievements meant that the person had done something sensational, and their fame was about the same. Usually, it came from the person's battle achievements. Now that the masked man had caused a commotion in the Mirror Lake mainland, this guy seemed to be showing signs of proclaiming himself to be a king. Lin Zhun was still not at the level of a god king, especially in terms of divine power. However, compared to divine power, his spiritual power and battle achievements were about the same. With the masked man, no one could see his realm. Now that he had activated his domain, he had 4,400,000 points of divine power. adding to that his ability to seal the soul of a high god. People would believe that he was a god king. Being able to single-handedly defeat a team of 12, this was not something an ordinary high god could do. Even if he wasn't a god king, his strength was close to that of a quasi-god king. Although Osto was one of the best in the dimensional arena, he did not dare to face a top-notch expert whose strength was close to that of a god king. The masked man is a vengeful person. He's already said that he's going to kill everyone who attacked him at the Scarlet Flame volcano. I'm the closest to Star Spirit's team. His next target will definitely be me. I can't just sit here and wait for my death. Running isn't a solution either. It wasn't easy for me to gain a foothold here. Osto quickly made a decision, and that was to ask for help. The person he was asking for help was the closest to him in the shallow water region, a free satellite of the dimensional arena. There were 36 people on this free satellite, and the leader was a veteran peak high god with the strength of a quasi-god king. He was Osto's senior. This person was even older than an ordinary god king. Nobody remembered his name, because he had forgotten his own name when he came out of seclusion after a million years. Everyone called him Hedgehog because this person was a galaxy beast with spikes all over his body. However, he was not a real hedgehog. Instead, he was a mutated stegosaurus. There were countless huge swords on his body. From afar, he really did look like a huge hedgehog. He was born with an extremely high understanding of the metal element. Later on, he even had a metal element divine clone. Hedgehog was definitely a natural expert. Hedgehog was originally a member of the Galaxy Beast Alliance. However, for some reason, he betrayed the Alliance and no longer admitted that he was part of the Galaxy Beast Alliance. He officially joined the dimensional arena. Osto had practically watched Hedgehog grow up. He had lived for more than 300 million years. In his memories, Hedgehog was a quasi-god king expert. Hedgehog had once achieved a heaven-defying record of 100 million victories in the dimensional arena. He had a title that said he was invincible below the God King level. In truth, there was no such thing as a quasi-god king level among the martial artists. A quasi-god king was the recognition of a martial artist's strength. Hedgehog, a peak high god who was invincible below the God King level, was undoubtedly a quasi-god king. In Osto's opinion, no matter how strong the Devil Masked Man was, it was impossible for him to defeat Hedgehog. He immediately requested help from the free satellite and connected to Hedgehog's dimensional universe. Osto, what did you do? You actually retreated from the shallow water region. You've embarrassed the experts of the dimensional arena. Senior, that's nothing. Give me some time to recuperate. I'll definitely be able to return to the shallow water region. However, the problem now is that the Devil Masked Man is coming to kill me. He'll be here in 20 minutes. Senior, please save me. Oh, Devil Masked Man. Where have I heard of this name recently? Senior, this guy is very arrogant and despotic. Back then, we had some grudges. Now, he wants to massacre all of us. The Northern Regions Alliance, the Green Tiger Gang, and the 8 Great Hammers have all been killed by him. This guy claims that he's invincible below the God King level. He's rushing over here now. If Senior doesn't help, I'm afraid you won't be able to see me again. What? Invincible below the God King level? Hedgehog, who is naturally hot-tempered, instantly darkened when he heard Osto's words. Chapter 1175. After receiving Hedgehog's reply, Osto was finally relieved. He had 7 superior gods with him, while Hedgehog had 36 superior gods with him. With Osto, a quasi-god king, even if Lin Jun was a real god king, he would still have a chance to survive. Moreover, it was impossible for Lin Jun to have the strength of a real god king. Osto was relieved. Everyone get ready. We await Senior Hedgehog's arrival. They were all people from the dimensional arena. When they heard that Hedgehog was coming, they were all excited. In their hearts, Hedgehog was a legend. If not for Hedgehog's mentality being more condensed, causing his mentality to be unable to advance, he would have become a God King expert long ago. Now, when some God Kings saw Hedgehog, they would have to respectfully address him as Senior. After waiting for more than 10 minutes, a huge free satellite on the surface of the Mirror Lake pushed apart the waves and flew over at a low altitude. The free satellite looked like a sea urchin and was comparable in size to an aircraft carrier on Earth. However, such a huge object could only fit 36 people. Because everyone was a god, they all needed their own space to cultivate. They could not sit in rows like sardines on the seats like civil aviation. The free satellite arrived at the beach area and slowly descended. The hatch at the abdomen opened, and the superior gods belonging to the dimensional arena walked out one by one. There were 36 people. All of them were superior gods. Some were late superior gods. Some were pinnacle superior gods. None of them were weaklings. They were all experts who had experienced hundreds of battles. Those who could follow Hedgehog could not possibly be weak. Hedgehog was the last to walk out. This person was a burly man who looked to be in his 40s. He had black hair that stood up on his head. His hair did not look like it had been bombarded. Instead, it looked like a sharp sword. At first glance, one could tell that he had an extremely sharp aura. Wherever his gaze passed, it was as if sword energy was pressing. No one dared to look at him directly. Osto walked over quickly and bowed deeply to Hedgehog. Senior, Junior Osto pays his respects. No need. Is that devil-masked man here yet? Senior, Junior has already communicated with some people along the way. They have confirmed that devil-masked man is heading in this direction. He will probably arrive in 5 minutes. Good. What an ignorant fool. Our dimensional arena is a place where the strongest people in the universe are born. How can we let a little god like him behave so atrociously? How dare he compare us to a lowly gang like the Green Tiger Gang? How dare he? Today, I'll show you my strength. I guarantee that as long as this devil-masked man dares to come, I'll chase him to the ends of the earth. I won't let him go. The surrounding people were all excited. With Hedgehog's guarantee, there was no chance of anything going wrong. Hedgehog had a fiery temper and was a man of his word. As long as he made a promise, he would definitely do it. It seemed that the devil-masked man was in danger. Osto also looked happy. With Senior's words, the masked man is doomed. Oof, you're such a good-for-nothing. You nearly peed your pants after being attacked by a devil-masked man. You've ruined my fun. I'll deal with you when this is over. Junior deserves death. May I know what I've disturbed, Senior? A smug look appeared on Hedgehog's face. I'm currently cultivating metal-type energy. Senior, didn't you already comprehend the true essence of metal elemental energy? Why do you still need to cultivate it? You don't know. Although I've comprehended metal-type energy, it's also because of the limitations of this thing that makes it difficult for me to comprehend other types of energy. Since that's the case, I might as well cultivate metal-type energy until the end. All these years, I've actually been collecting rare metal-type energy from heaven and earth to condense the body of diamond. Body of diamond. Osto's face was filled with shock. That's right. Body of diamond, condensed from rare metals. Once I succeed, I've been doing this for almost 1 billion years. Once I succeed, I'll surpass a divine king, even if I'm not one yet. Seeing the smug look on Hedgehog's face, Osto hurriedly flattered him. Then I wish Senior success soon. Now all that's left is the chaotic golden chi. This is the final step. If I can collect the chaotic golden chi from the heavenly tribulation, this will be considered a success. At that time, even if a real divine king appears, I'll be able to fight him. Osto thought to himself, I'm afraid it'll be difficult for you to succeed. Is the metal chi from the heavenly tribulation so easy to collect? Moreover, you were born with metal-type comprehension. The last thing that will descend from the heavenly tribulation is metal chi. I'm afraid there won't be a day when you succeed. Of course, he could not say this out loud. This hedgehog's metal chi seemed to be showing signs of exploding. He did not know how much rare metal-type energy he had collected in his body. It felt as if his body contained an entire galaxy. Osto did not dare to provoke him, so he could only say nice things. After a few more words, above the beach and lake in the distance, a person stepped on a thundercloud and came over. The person who came was Lin Jun. Lin Jun saw a huge free satellite when he was very far away. A free satellite was not an ordinary flying device. One of these things cost at least 200 million. It was a treasure second only to a flying palace. A free satellite could carry 36 people. However, according to Lin Jun's knowledge, Osto only had one shield god ship. He did not have a free satellite. Without a doubt, this was the reinforcements that Osto had found. However, Lin Jun was not afraid. Whether it was the shield god ship or the free satellite, they were not God King's ships. At most, they had more peak high gods. After Lin Jun gained the ability to teleport, he was not afraid of having more high gods. As he continued to rumble forward, the lightning above the thundercloud became more and more powerful. On the beach ahead, more than 40 high gods stood there. Lin Jun rushed in front of those people. However, just as he was about to stop, the lightning above the thundercloud seemed to be out of control. It suddenly smashed towards one of them. Lin Jun did not have time to do anything. Countless lightning bolts struck that person's body. Ever since Lin Jun had comprehended the true essence of lightning, the lightning contained in the thundercloud had reached the level of destruction lightning. With so much lightning, it was almost enough to kill a high god on the spot. As for why the lightning was out of control, the reason was even simpler. It was because this person's metal chi was too strong. He stood there like a lightning rod. The lightning was attracted to him and attacked instinctively. Kacha, kacha, kacha. Bolts of lightning streaked across the sky. Lin Jun sighed. This person was probably finished. However, when the lightning dissipated, Lin Jun was stunned. Chapter 1176. Only now did Lin Jun truly see this man for who he was. He's so strong. Lin Jun narrowed his eyes. Ever since he broke through to become a mid-god, Lin Jun had never met a high god. Lin Jun had even felt that high gods were just SOSO. But the man in front of him had clearly shattered his beliefs and made him feel powerful. Just by standing there, it was as if he had gathered the sharpness of heaven and earth into his body. He was a sword, a spear, and could unleash the sharpest attack at any time. Moreover, his divine power was clearly a level higher than Lin Jun's. Under normal circumstances, his divine power was over 2 million. It must be known that Lin Jun's divine power was currently at 51 million. It was very difficult for him to meet an opponent. And this man's divine power was almost 1 million lower than Lin Jun's. This was a quasi-God King level expert, without a doubt. This was his first time facing such an expert. Lin Jun didn't shrink back. Standing in front of him, he released his divine power to the maximum. Seeing Lin Jun release his divine power, Hedgehog was stunned. Haha, not bad. Your divine power is actually over 4 million. But unfortunately, in front of me, you're still not enough. Whether it's enough or not, you'll only know after you try. Arrogant. Today, I'll let you know what it means to be invincible below the God King level. Hedgehog raised his hand, and a double-edged halberd appeared in his hand. The halberd was 5 meters long and shrouded in a golden aura. It was a high-grade weapon. Hedgehog immediately released his divine power. In an instant, his divine power soared to over 6 million. Die! The halberd chopped down fiercely. The person behind Hedgehog had long since retreated far away when he took out his halberd. Under this attack, the halberd shone like the sun in a clear sky, emitting thousands of rays of golden light. The surrounding space faintly showed signs of collapsing. Lin Jun resolutely met the attack with the jackdaw sword in hand. Clang! The huge impact formed a shockwave, like a stone thrown into water, sending out circles of ripples in the air. Lin Jun's body was blasted back several hundred meters. The difference in strength between the two was still too great. Lin Jun's divine power was no match for his opponent, especially the opponent's halberd, which was as heavy as a mountain. Lin Jun felt his arm go numb. Ha ha ha, now you know how powerful I am. Brat, remember not to be too arrogant after you die. Hedgehog's attack was successful. He looked up to the sky and laughed. The gods in the dimensional arena far away were clapping and cheering with all their might. Lin Jun stabilized his body and swung his arm. Luckily, with the leech gene, his resistance and recovery ability were very strong. Although his strength was not as strong as the opponent, such an attack could not cause him any harm. Don't think you've won just like that. Again, Lin Jun's light-chasing beast genes gave him super fast speed. In the next second, he appeared in front of the hedgehog. Stinking brat, your speed is pretty fast. But even if you do it 100 more times, the result will still be the same. Hedgehog brandished his halberd again. The metal aura on it was even stronger. Clearly, this attack was even more powerful. The halberd swept past Lin Jun's neck. Hedgehog's face revealed a sinister smile. He could almost see Lin Jun's head falling to the ground. "Senior, be careful," Osto cried out from behind him. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew from behind his head. The cold air was threatening. How is this possible? Hedgehog never would have dreamed that Lin Jun could teleport. He didn't have time to dodge this attack. The sword hit the back of his head. A streak of sparks flew past his head. Lin Jun's jackdaw had sliced off a chunk of his scalp. If he hadn't dodged in time of crisis, this attack would have caused him serious damage. Lin Jun clicked his tongue. What a tough head. I can't believe Jackdaw wasn't able to finish him off. Hedgehog's eyes blazed with fury. At the same time, he realized that today's opponent was going to be difficult to deal with. This was the first time he'd seen an opponent who could teleport within the Mirror Lake continent. Now, it would be difficult to kill Lin Jun quickly. Good. Devil-masked man, you do have the right to be arrogant, but you shouldn't have angered me like this. This will only lead to your death. Now the real battle begins. Hedgehog roared. His halberd came crashing down like a storm. This time, he was even more careful of Lin Jun's teleportation. It would be impossible for Lin Jun to kill him as easily as the first time. Lin Jun had finally witnessed the true power of anyone below the Divine King level. Hedgehog's body was as hard as steel, and his battle techniques were top-notch. His combat experience was no less than Lin Jun's. If it weren't for the fact that he could teleport to relieve pressure and avoid attacks, Lin Jun would be at a complete disadvantage. Even with teleportation, Lin Jun was still at a disadvantage. After all, there was a 2 million godly power gap between them. Hedgehog was strong, but Lin Jun couldn't back down. To be able to fight such an expert was a rare experience. With the Leech Gene and the Chaser Beast Gene, Lin Jun was confident that he could keep this up. The battle between the two began with a loud rumble. Before the battle began, the people in the dimensional arena believed that Lin Jun would be easily annihilated by Hedgehog, but they never expected the devil-masked man to be so strong. The two of them fought from the sky to the ground, from the ground to the volcano, and occasionally they would soar into the sky from the volcano before fighting back into the sky. Hedgehog's seemingly ferocious attacks couldn't deal any fatal damage to Lin Jun. It wasn't easy to hit this person who often disappeared and reappeared in another place. Even if he succeeded, Hedgehog would recover quickly and come back again. The fight went from morning to dusk, from dusk to midnight, and from midnight to dawn. After a whole day of fighting, the surrounding volcanic area was in ruins. The gods, who had been cheering for Hedgehog in the beginning, were now a little sleepy. The two of them won't keep fighting like this, right? It's hard to say. Master Hedgehog is stronger, but he's not strong enough to kill Devil-Masked Man instantly. This person's recovery ability is too strong. If this continues, it'll be a war of 1,000 days. It's a pity that when Master Hedgehog attacks, no one else is allowed to interfere. Otherwise, everyone would attack together and kill this bastard. Hearing the others' discussion, Osto finally said, "Don't worry. Master Hedgehog hasn't used his true strength yet. Just watch. When he uses his ultimate move, the battle will be over." At that moment, there was finally a change in the battle between the two. Lin Jun sacrificed himself and attacked Hedgehog, injuring his arm. Hedgehog didn't continue this attack. After taking 2 steps back, he suddenly roared. A golden nebula surged out of his god world and instantly covered a radius of 1,000 miles. Chapter 1177. The battle between Hedgehog and Lin Jun for the entire day was finally coming to an end. Once his golden nebula appeared, all the metal energy in the world seemed to gather there. The volcano, the mirror lake, the beach, and the sky. Billions of rays of light shone upon each other. All the metal elemental energy broke through the air and formed an inescapable net around his nebula. Hedgehog was the core of the nebula. He looked down at Lin Jun from above. In his palm, a golden disc floated. This disc was the core of the nebula. This is metal field, a domain-type armor. Lin Jun squinted his eyes. He didn't expect Hedgehog to have domain-type armor. His mastery of metal elemental energy had reached such a level. But no matter how desperate the situation was, Lin Jun wasn't the kind of person who would give up. He had survived the metal elemental tribulation. Of course, he wouldn't give up just like that. Devil-masked man, pay the price for your arrogance. Hedgehog waved his hand. Streaks of metal energy crisscrossed between heaven and earth. They covered the sky and covered Lin Jun. Lin Jun snorted. What a powerful metal field. But how long can you last against such a powerful field? Facing the strongest metal energy, Lin Jun teleported away. Hedgehog laughed uproariously. At the very least, it won't be a problem for me to hold on until I kill you. I know you've cultivated the leech gene, but can you withstand the attacks of the endless gold chi? Hedgehog waved his hand. The golden disc in his hand spun faster. The metal energy almost covered the entire space. Lin Jun kept teleporting, but each time he teleported, it was more dangerous than the last. Lin Jun wanted to launch a sneak attack on the hedgehog. However, every time he got close to the hedgehog, the domain equipment would send out a powerful shockwave, riddling Lin Jun's body with holes. After a few times, Lin Jun's recovery speed couldn't even keep up with the attack speed of the metal energy. If this continued, he would die. What a powerful field armor. It puts me in a passive position. Fortunately, I still need the mysterious yellow pagoda. Metal energy is strong, but it is still a type of energy. Let's see if you can break through the defense of the mysterious yellow pagoda. Lin Jun pointed his finger. The mysterious yellow pagoda appeared above his head. It spun. The mysterious yellow pagoda's energy was like a river hanging upside down, blocking the metal energy in the sky. The metal energy came crackling up. Although it was powerful, it couldn't break through the mysterious yellow pagoda's defense. Seeing such a scene, the spectators were dumbfounded. No way. Hedgehog's field armor. God, if even Sir Hedgehog can't do anything to the masked man, what can we do? Do we really have to ask the god? Hedgehog himself didn't expect Lin Jun to be so difficult to deal with. His face had already turned ashen. One must know that not only were there people from the dimensional arena spectating the battle, there were also many other spectators. If word of this got out, it would only increase the prestige of the devil-masked man, damage the reputation of the hedgehog, and bring shame to the reputation of the arena. Hedgehog would never allow this to happen. However, Lin Jun was more slippery than a loach. He could teleport and dodge in a head-on battle. Hedgehog took out his field armor, but Lin Jun also had the mysterious yellow pagoda. Damn it, I'm Hedgehog, but you're the hedgehog. I don't know where to start. Hedgehog looked around and took a deep breath. He had already said that he had to take down Lin Jun today. Lin Jun, good job. You've really opened my eyes. If I can't take you down today, I'll kill myself here. Lin Jun laughed. If you have the ability, then do it. Don't talk like a sissy. Don't you feel ashamed? Come, Hedgehog. Let's see who's invincible below the God King now. The hedgehog roared and transformed back into his galactic beast form. He was originally a mutated galactic swordback dragon. Because he betrayed the Galactic Beast Alliance and refused to admit his identity, he had lived in his human form for hundreds of millions of years. He had never revealed his true form. However, Lin Jun had forced him to this point. He had no choice but to reveal his true form again. Hedgehog shook his head and wagged his tail. This swordback dragon was tens of thousands of meters long. It was thousands of meters tall and was comparable to Mount Everest in the sky. Thousands of golden bone spikes grew from its back. Each of those bone spikes was almost at the level of an armor. They were incomparably sharp. Roar! Hedgehog, you forced me to do this. I didn't want to show myself, but you pushed me too far. I had no choice but to reveal my true form to take you down. Even a God King would have to be careful in my battle form. Lin Jun faced Hedgehog, who had revealed his true form, but his expression remained unchanged. I'm not a God King. I can deal with you as I wish. You traitor of the Alliance. It seems like I'll have to clean up the sect today. Cut the crap. I'll show you my strongest technique. Flying swords. Hedgehog shook his body. Thousands of bone spikes rose from his back and pierced through the clouds. The clouds were filled with gold chi stars. Each of these bone spikes had absorbed enough gold chi and were at the level of a low-grade armor. With a buzzing sound, countless sword lights lingered in the sky and formed a huge, killing array. Hedgehog, your mysterious yellow pagoda can isolate energy, but can't isolate physical objects. My bone spikes now have the power of a low-grade armor. There are more than 30,000 of them. Let's see if your mysterious yellow pagoda can withstand them. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Although Lin Jun spoke casually, he was actually in the midst of the greatest crisis. The mysterious yellow pagoda had lost its ability to block the flying sword-like bone spikes. Lin Jun tried to block one of the bone spikes and felt the immense power it contained. There was no way he could block tens of thousands of bone spikes. Lin Jun could only rely on teleportation to dodge back and forth in the sky, constantly circling around. Whoosh! A bone spike pierced through Lin Jun's shoulder. Before Lin Jun could recover, 3 more bone spikes pierced through Lin Jun's abdomen. Whoosh! 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 Another 5 bone spikes pierced through Lin Jun's legs. It seemed that his recovery speed could not keep up. Lin Jun gritted his teeth. These bone spikes were all controlled by Hedgehog. He still had one last trick up his sleeve. Lin Jun used the jackdaw to block the bone spikes. Then he activated his solar ring. With the help of the solar ring, Lin Jun forcefully launched a mental attack on Hedgehog. Since Hedgehog was not a divine king, his mental power had not reached the crystal formation stage. With the help of the solar ring, Lin Jun would definitely be able to attack Hedgehog's sea of consciousness. It was very likely that Lin Jun would be able to slow down the flying swords. Bang! Whoosh! The mental power blasted into Hedgehog's sea of consciousness. Instantly, the flying swords in the sky paused. Wahahaha! Kid, your mental power is so strong. Hedgehog was helpless against Lin Jun's attack. He could only forcefully use his domain armor to drive it and continue attacking Lin Jun. Lin Jun had no other tricks up his sleeve. He could only use the solar ring to drive his mental power to attack. Mental attack versus flying swords. It was a matter of who could not hold on first. Chapter 1178. No one had imagined that Lin Jun would be able to fight Hedgehog to this extent. Although Lin Jun had relied on Jackdaw, the mysterious yellow pagoda, and the Ring of Sun to do this, that was how martial artists were. The strength of their equipment was also a part of their strength. Otherwise, why would so many people fight for it? At this point in the battle, it was no longer a contest of strength, but of willpower. Hedgehog controlled his flying swords to attack Lin Jun, resisting Lin Jun's mental attacks. Lin Jun used his powerful life force and regenerative abilities to block the flying swords. At the same time, he used his mental strength to bombard Hedgehog. The battle was so fierce that the spectators couldn't help but stare. Lord Hedgehog can do it. He can definitely hold on. No problem at all. He's a super powerhouse who's won 100 million battles in the dimensional arena. He's a quasi-god king. Everyone in the dimensional arena's palms were sweating as they constantly encouraged themselves and cheered for Hedgehog. But many things didn't go as one wished. After several exchanges, Hedgehog couldn't hold on any longer. Oh, I don't believe it. Hedgehog couldn't believe that he had lost to Lin Jun in a contest of willpower. Lin Jun stood there, pierced by tens of thousands of flying swords. He was clearly on the verge of collapse, but Hedgehog's mental attacks continued to bombard him. He would rather die than retreat. He would rather break than bend. Hedgehog's brain was about to turn to mush. He was already terrified. He knew that if this continued, he would be the one to lose. But he couldn't lose. He couldn't afford to lose. Hedgehog was a strong person. Even if he died, he would drag Lin Jun down with him. Hedgehog used the last of his strength to drive his domain disc. The disc spun wildly, and the golden energy in the air began to gather. All of the golden energy condensed, transforming into a force similar to heavenly tribulation. It was about to launch a final attack on Lin Jun. Metal was the first of the 5 elements. Hedgehog's billion years of accumulation gathered together. The power it contained was unimaginable. As for the metal disc, it couldn't withstand this power. Cracks began to appear on its surface. A low-grade domain equipment was about to be destroyed. At this moment, Lin Jun's dantian suddenly throbbed. When Lin Jun had swallowed the heavenly tribulation's gold chi, it had formed a powerful mass of gold chi. Now, this mass of gold chi was actually being pulled by the gold chi from the outside world and was about to leave his body. Hedgehog, who was about to cut off all means of retreat, froze for a moment before bursting into laughter. Its huge body twisted in the sky, and it spoke in a human voice. Wahaha! I can't believe you have the aura of primal chaos, golden chi, and heavenly tribulation. This is truly a case of traveling far and wide in search of something, only to find it by sheer luck. You actually have something that I've been searching for a billion years. This is a blessing from the heavens. With this primal chaos golden chi, my cultivation technique will be complete. The hedgehog roared furiously as if he had been injected with a stimulant. He urged his god power with all his might, trying to draw Lin Jun's gold chi out of his body. Lin Jun knew that if the gold chi was successfully absorbed by the hedgehog, he would lose this battle. He tried his best to stop it, but it was too late. Forget it. Cut off all means of retreat. The 102 Qin passes will belong to Chu. Let's fight. Lin Jun was also determined. He pulled back and released the primal chaos golden chi out of his body. The 2 masses of gold chi met in the sky, and a qualitative change occurred. After a billion years of hard work, the hedgehog was excited and could not help but look over. But at this moment, Lin Jun also transformed into his galactic beast. Roar! A black hole beast that was not smaller than the Stegosaurus appeared. It opened its mouth and released the black hole energy that had been suppressed for many years. Not good. This was the first time the hedgehog fought with Lin Jun. He was not familiar with Lin Jun and did not know Lin Jun's fighting style. He did not expect Lin Jun to have a black hole devouring technique. The galactic beast's body was huge, and it was too late to dodge. Lin Jun's black hole devouring technique, with more than 4 million stars of astral energy, was difficult for even a god king to block, let alone a quasi-god king like the hedgehog. The hedgehog twisted his body, but he could not block the black hole devouring technique. He went straight for the center of the black hole devouring technique. No, Ghost Masked Man, if you dare to devour me, the gold chi will go out of control, and you will die. Maybe, but you won't have the chance to see it. Lin Jun did not show any mercy. The black hole devouring technique swallowed the hedgehog. At the same time, the domain equipment in the sky could not withstand the gold chi's power and exploded. A beam of golden light shot towards Lin Jun. After Lin Jun swallowed the hedgehog, he had no choice but to open his mouth and continue to devour the ball of golden chi. If I can devour you once, I can do it again. Come on. The black hole devouring technique continued to spread and came into contact with the gold chi. Like a god's sword, it pierced the core of the black hole devouring technique. The black hole devouring technique could not digest the gold chi. Lin Jun seemed to have a sun in his body. Golden light shot out from all directions. His blood flew out along with the gold chi, turning him into a bloody man. Originally, some people still wanted to join the battle to save the hedgehog, but seeing this situation, they ran as far away as they could. From the looks of it, this battle seemed to be a mutual destruction. Lin Jun's self-destruction seemed to be irreversible. Everyone was watching from afar. Once Lin Jun self-destructed, they would go over and snatch the spoils. Lin Jun was simply a moving treasure trove. No, it's not over yet. Lin Jun knew that today's matter was not going to be easy. The gold chi's energy was vast. It was comparable to a star system. If he could digest this energy, Lin Jun's cultivation would rise sharply. But to digest it was not so easy. Gold was the sharpest thing. If Lin Jun wanted to melt it, he only had one last hope. That was the universe's origin that he obtained when he broke through to the God realm. The universe's origin power that belongs to me, appear. Lin Jun roared. The universe's origin power that had merged with his limbs and bones finally burst out at this moment. When the huge gold chi that seemed to be able to destroy the world encountered the universe's origin power, its violent agitation actually quieted down. No matter how strong the gold chi was, it was still one of the universe's energies. When it encountered the universe's origin power, it still had to calm down. It was just that the amount of gold chi was too large. It was so large that the universe's origin power could not completely suppress it. At this time, it was time to manifest a warrior's will. Lin Jun, who was enduring the pain of thousands of arrows piercing his heart every second, would die if he could not bear it, and collapsed. Chapter 1179. Lin Jun's strange phenomenon attracted the attention of the people below. At first, the people in the dimensional arena hid far away, afraid that Lin Jun's explosion would affect them. However, after running out for a while, they noticed that the frequency of the golden aura bursting outwards had decreased. This devil-masked man, Lin Jun, was actually able to endure the pain of billions of golden aura piercing through his body, and even suppress it. This discovery completely stunned them. They didn't want to see such a scene. The devil-masked man, the black hole beast, and Lin Jun. This person had swallowed the hedgehog alive, and now he could even suppress the golden aura that was as vast as a galaxy. If he were to successfully survive this calamity, they wouldn't be able to survive. Kill him. They had to kill him. Osto roared. Brothers, let's take advantage of this opportunity to kill him. The people in the dimensional arena immediately swarmed forward, heading straight for Lin Jun, who was still resisting the golden aura in the sky. Lin Jun was bitterly suppressing the golden aura and trying to absorb and refine it when he saw the people from the dimensional arena approaching. At this point, Lin Jun no longer had the ability to fight with these people. The only thing he could do was to seal himself away. In the sea of constellations and the Mirror Lake continent, it was almost impossible to seal oneself away because no one could use spatial energy. However, Lin Jun could. After absorbing Suzanne's memories, Lin Jun could construct a realm. The so-called realm construct was to create an independent space that was incompatible with the space itself. With a thought, Lin Jun instantly formed an independent space within 100 meters of him. The spatial energy vibrated, and a layer of dark yellow light shone down. Lin Jun's position instantly became illusory. He could be seen, but not touched. The martial artists from the dimensional arena charged over, but it was as if they had entered a chaotic space. They could clearly see Lin Jun, but they couldn't reach him no matter what. Suzanne's realm construct could envelop a person. It was for battle, but it also had a hallucinatory effect. Those inside could use their strength to break it, but those outside couldn't enter. If you want to enter, you have to be able to use the power of space here. These people didn't believe in heresy and launched a series of attacks at the small space, but to no avail. The opponent isn't even in the space you're in. So how are you going to attack? He tried again and failed again and again. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of thousands of attacks swept past this place, but they were all like clay oxen entering the sea, never to return. Damn it! How can this guy use the space laws? How are we supposed to fight? I can't hit him at all. Did Sir Hedgehog die for nothing? Help, help! Everyone, gather all the friends you can find. There's strength in numbers. I don't believe that we can't do anything to this devil-masked man. That's right. Let's all mobilize and look for people. It would be best if we could find a quasi-god king. Ordinary people might not be able to do anything. The 40-plus high gods of the Dimensional Colosseum began to use their connections, calling their friends to hurry over. Some even posted posts in the dimensional universe, requesting people to come and kill the masked man. A regional video was uploaded, and everyone who entered the Mirror Lake continent could see it. The news of the devil-masked man killing Hedgehog and being trapped in the sandy beach area spread. And some of the more observant people saw it, and their eyes lit up. What? The Dimensional Colosseum is requesting help. Requesting experts to head to the sandy beach area to kill the devil-masked man. When Jiang Chao of the Heaven Secret Alliance saw this news, he was instantly moved. He also knew about the Devil-Masked Man's return. Back then, he was one of the 6 people who attacked the Devil-Masked Man at the Scarlet Flame volcano. He was worried that the Devil-Masked Man would come knocking on his door one day. He didn't expect that the Devil-Masked Man would be trapped in the sandy beach area. He couldn't just sit by and watch. Killing the Devil-Masked Man was also to protect himself. Moreover, the Devil-Masked Man had many treasures on him. Just the mysterious yellow pagoda and the sun ring were enough to make people fight for it. Brothers, follow me. Let's head to the sandy beach area to take care of the Devil-Masked Man. 2 shield god warships rose into the air and flew over from the other side of the Mirror Lake. Feeney of the Northern Regions Alliance was also the person who had obtained the moon ring of the sun, moon, and star rings. Although it wasn't bad to have the moon ring in his hand, the sun ring was what he wanted more. It was just that the sun ring was in the Devil-Masked Man's hands. He thought that he wouldn't have the chance to get it. However, he didn't expect that such a rare opportunity would appear. Moreover, Lin Jun had killed the people of the Northern Regions Alliance multiple times. He could go there in the name of revenge. He immediately brought along one of the Northern Regions Alliance's free satellites. Feeney also moved out. Other than them, there were also some people from the 8 Great Hammers, Green Tiger Gang, and Sakura Alliance. They all rushed to the sandy beach area. There were also some people who wanted Lin Jun's life more than anyone else. These people could be considered as Lin Jun's fellow apprentices. They were like Lin Jun, the pre-selected disciples of Lonely Star Fishing Old Man, ever since Aegis released the news about the ruler's Imperial Jade Seal. Everyone wanted to gather all 9 rulers' Imperial Jade Seals. But how could they gather all 9? For those who were weak, forget about gathering all 9. They would be burning incense every day if they didn't want their Imperial Jade Seals to be snatched away by powerhouses like Andamandes or Green. The only chance to gather all 9 was to get Lin Jun's 8 Imperial Jade Seals. And now, the opportunity had finally appeared. Lin Jun was fighting with some of the forces in the Mirror Lake and was in a desperate situation. As long as they could break through that strange space and get the 8 Imperial Jade Seals, they would be able to obtain the best equipment and armor. No one would give up on this opportunity. Including Andamandes, almost all the surviving disciples of Lonely Star Fishing Old Man rushed to the Mirror Lake area. However, Andamandes came openly, while the others came quietly, waiting for an opportunity to act. There were also some quasi-divine king-level experts who knew that Hedgehog had fallen in Lin Jun's hands. They all felt that this was an opportunity. No one was in the mood to avenge Hedgehog, but the treasures on Lin Jun's body were still very attractive. The 18 godly swords Jackdaw, the mysterious yellow pagoda that could block energy attacks, and a solar ring that could increase the power of mental attacks. Every item attracted everyone's attention. It could be said that if it weren't for these treasures, Lin Jun would have been killed by Hedgehog. It could be seen how powerful these treasures were. This was a moving treasure trove. It was much more practical than a treasure hunt. A man's wealth was his own ruin. Lin Jun had so many treasures. That was a crime. In the depths of the Mirror Lake, Shield God ships and free satellites were activated and headed to the sandy beach area. Chapter 1180. The people in the dimensional arena did not expect things to turn out this way. Originally, they asked everyone to contact their friends, but it caused a commotion in the entire Mirror Lake mainland. Looking at the increasing number of people in the Sandy Beach district, they knew that things were completely out of their control. When the land reclamation was first opened, there were about 50 to 60,000 people who entered the Mirror Lake mainland. In the past 17 to 18 years, some people left, some people died, but that was only a small portion. Now, there were still about 40,000 people in the Mirror Lake mainland. Now, there were close to 10,000 people in the Sandy Beach district, which was almost a quarter of the total population. When the various gangs and forces arrived and saw the situation, they would gather together spontaneously to prevent accidental injuries from occurring due to the fight for the treasure. There were about a dozen factions here, and 6 of them had a grudge against Lin Jun. In every gang, there would be a few leaders who would temporarily gather together and be elected as the temporary leader. Otherwise, it would be a complete mess. Feeney of the Northern Regions Alliance, Osto of the Dimensional Arena, Jiang Chao of the Heavenly Imperial Alliance, Anro of the Sakura Alliance, Delove of the Eight Great Hammers, Baby Spirit of the Green Tiger Gang, Lanka of the Galactic Beast Alliance, and so on. Lanka was the man that Lin Jun, Suzanne, and the others met in the bar. He was a very strong warrior. These people were all peak high gods. Although they did not dare to say that they were at the level of a quasi-god king, they were still outstanding among the high gods. When everyone arrived, the first thing they did was to look at Lin Jun, who was in the air. Lin Jun had already taken off his ghost face mask and was fighting against the gold energy in the structured space. He was like a shining sun, but also like a sea urchin. The gold energy around his body was constantly expanding and erupting, but he was constantly suppressing it. It looked like he could die at any time, but he could not die. Around him, people were constantly trying to fly up and launch their most powerful attacks at this space. The ultimate techniques of saber, spear, and swordsmanship, as well as the constant spiritual attacks and various energy elements, were constantly exploding in this space. Rumbling sounds of explosions and flying chi could be heard incessantly, but none of the attacks seemed to be able to affect Lin Jun in the slightest. Delove of the Eight Great Hammers made his move. Delove was an elder of the Eight Great Hammers. He had inherited the tradition of the Eight Great Hammers. He held a pair of huge hammers in his hands. Among the people present, his strength could be ranked in the top 3. A pair of giant hammers were raised, and with the power to shatter stars, they smashed towards the space where Lin Jun was. The surrounding air seemed to have been sucked dry by this attack, instantly turning into a vacuum. This attack could even penetrate a star. The people below looked at Delove with anticipation. If Delove succeeded, they would rush up and kill him for the treasure. Even the people who were thousands of meters away were thrown to the ground by this attack. But after the hammer wind passed, the space remained the same. Everyone was a little depressed, and the chaotic attacks gradually stopped. Northern Region Alliance's Feeney said, "Everyone, save your energy. This devil-masked man Lin Jun isn't even in the space we're in. Even if we exhaust ourselves to the point of vomiting blood, he won't hurt a single strand of hair in the alternate dimension." Jiang Chao of the Heavenly Imperial Alliance clapped his hands angrily. Are we just going to watch him be arrogant here? Delove, who had just failed, also felt very embarrassed. He looked at Runka. Runka, Lin Jun is a member of your Galactic Beast Alliance. You should know something about him, right? Lanka's face was a little unhappy. Lin Jun and I have only met once. We haven't even spoken to each other. Besides, we are the same race. I didn't come here to kill him. I can't interfere with how you deal with him, but I won't participate either. Anro of the Sakura Alliance snorted. We were not counting on you. But if Lin Jun's space is broken, you better stay away from him to avoid being attacked by us. Runka spread his hands and stepped back, indicating the Galactic Beast Alliance's attitude. It was not that he did not want to save Lin Jun, but he could not under such circumstances. Everyone, it seems that our attacks are not strong enough. I think we need a quasi-divine king to have any hope, said the baby spirit of the Green Tiger Gang. A quasi-divine king is more or less the same. It's a pity that a quasi-divine king is not here yet. Who said that? Isn't he here? Finley pointed, and everyone turned around to see a gigantic free satellite on the surface of Mirror Lake, cleaving through the waves as it approached. It's the Tree Demon King. The owner of this free satellite was also very famous. Not only was he a quasi-divine king expert, but he was also a plant life. His true form was a huge tree that reached into the sky. He was born with a natural understanding of the wood elemental precepts. Such special life forms were very talented and were born stronger than others. However, this kind of talent usually reached the limit of a quasi-divine king. The free satellite arrived, and the Tree Demon King walked down from it. This was a huge man who was more than 3 meters tall. He had long green hair that looked like dense leaves on his head. As he strode down, the others took a step back to show their respect for the Tree Demon King. What? You guys still can't break this kid's space barrier. Our juniors are incompetent. It's indeed difficult. Move aside. Let me try. The tree demon king arrived below the space where Lin Jun was. First, he extended a withered arm that looked like a huge tree branch and swung it at the sky. The tree branch passed through the space where Lin Jun was. It pierced through the air, but did not touch anything. You do have some skills. Let's try this. Hundreds of arms suddenly appeared behind the tree demon king. Each arm was a huge tree branch that looked like countless long swords. They covered the sky and covered the earth as they attacked again. Dust flew and air currents rolled, but the result was the same. The tree demon king's expression turned ugly. What a powerful spatial precepts. It actually hid in another dimension. Let's see if it can block my strongest attack. He raised his hands, and a seed appeared in his palms. He directly dropped it on the ground where Lin Jun was. The seed automatically burrowed into the soil. The tree demon king once again shot out a green radiance. This was a very strong vitality. The radiance entered the soil, and the seed quickly grew. Like a bamboo shoot at night, it grew at an extremely high speed. It twisted and soared into the sky. Its tip had a bit of green radiance that pierced through space. This was the essence of the wood elemental precepts. It had the ability to break through powerful obstacles. Even the alloy-free satellite armor could not block a single stab from the tree branch. Chapter 1181. After the failure of the branch, the Demon Tree King was at his wit's end. He didn't expect that his best ability couldn't break open this space. This was a bit embarrassing. His face turned green as he said, embarrassedly, "I'm afraid there's no way to forcefully break open this space. Unless one is proficient in the law of space, even a true, godly monarch would find it difficult. Let me try." At this moment, another person flew over. This person was tall and straight, and his face was chiseled like a marble statue. However, not many people present recognized him. However, this didn't stop him from being powerful. He gave off a strong oppressive feeling when he arrived. It was close to the might of a godly monarch. Quasi-godly monarchs like Hedgehog were said to be invincible below the godly monarch level. However, in the eyes of others, he might not be a match for this person. "Who are you?" "I'm Andamandes." The person didn't say anything else after that. Instead, he came to the space where Lin Jun was, took out the sword in his hand, and formed a hand seal. Great Vidra Wheel Seal. This was the ultimate move taught by Lone Star Fishing Old Man, the second move of the 9 superposition seal technique. It could double the lethality. Aegis thought that only Lin Jun had learned the second move, which shocked him greatly. However, he didn't expect that Lin Jun wasn't the only one who had learned the second move, and it was also one of them. "Lin Jun, it's up to you now." And his sword trembled as he stabbed out. The moment he attacked, the surrounding people all held their breaths. This sword was simply shocking. It was even stronger than the Demon Tree King's life branch. The ear-piercing shriek pierced everyone's eardrums, causing them to feel dizzy. The power of this sword had already exceeded the limits of their imagination. Everyone present had a feeling that they could not fight against this sword. Even if it was a God King, an ordinary attack would probably be at this level. However, such a sword actually stabbed empty air. Wherever the sword chi passed, a volcano in the distance collapsed. However, the space remained unscathed. Lin Jun was still fighting against the metal chi. Andamandes' sword pierced through the air, and he immediately retreated. The others don't need to try anymore. This kind of spatial technique cannot be forcefully broken. Even I can't do it. Those below the Divine King level don't need to try anymore. These few words expressed his attitude and also verified everyone's guesses. This was another half-Divine King. It was just that he did not know where this quasi-God King came from. After unleashing that stab, and flew off into the distance, cultivating on a distant mountain peak. After 2 consecutive quasi-God Kings failed, the people present finally stopped those useless attacks. Don't tell me we don't have a way to break Lin Jun's spatial technique. If Lin Jun completes the suppression of the gold chi, I'm afraid he will immediately escape. There's no better way now. In any case, I'm going to wait here. Lin Jun will come out sooner or later. The Mirror Lake continent will enter the volcanic eruption period again in 30 years. At that time, everyone will have to leave. I don't believe Lin Jun won't come out by then. The 8 Great Hammers de Love expressed his attitude. Me too. I'll wait here. I feel that whether Lin Jun suppresses the gold chi or is killed by it, there will be a result in the near future. The only thing worth worrying about is that Lin Jun might escape after coming out. The Green Tiger Gang's baby spirit also expressed his thoughts. After arriving, the Demon Tree King had been very unruly, but after seeing Ado appear, his arrogance was cut in half. He felt that it would be difficult for him to obtain Lin Jun's treasures by himself. After hearing these people's words, the Demon Tree King said, "How about this? I'll place down the Moon Elf tree and form a natural giant tree barrier around this space. This way, even if Lin Jun comes out, he won't be able to escape from my Moon Elf tree for a while. Everyone can easily kill him." "That's great. Thank you for your trouble, Senior Demon Tree King." Everyone was delighted. The Demon Tree King waved his hand. "Don't be in such a hurry to thank me. The Moon Elf tree will most likely experience a battle, and my losses will not be small. After killing Lin Jun, I want to choose one of his treasures. You guys can discuss it." Everyone was a bit troubled. Lin Jun had 3 main treasures: Jackdaw, Mysterious Yellow Pagoda, and Sun Ring. If the Demon Tree King wanted one, then the others would have less. But if they didn't agree with the Demon Tree King's suggestion, they probably wouldn't get anything. In the end, it was Dilaw from the Dimensional Arena who spoke up. "If that's the case, you can't choose the Mysterious Yellow Pagoda. Or you can split the Mysterious Yellow Pagoda in half. That way we can consider." The Demon Tree King nodded. All right. Everyone finally reached a temporary agreement and formed a temporary distribution plan. In fact, this could be considered an alliance. Their goal was to resist Andamandes, who had suddenly appeared. This guy gave off too much pressure. These people represented the majority of the people present. At the very least, no one from the various alliances stood up to oppose this. Even if there were a few lone wolves hiding in the shadows, they wouldn't be able to affect anything. The Demon Tree King took action again, planting a new seed. In a short time, it grew into a giant tree that was comparable to a mountain. The tree covered the sky and the sun, completely enveloping the space Lin Jun was in. This way, even if Lin Jun left the space, he would fall into the Moon Elf tree's encirclement. As for the others, they all brought their subordinates and chose good positions on the branches in all directions. Once Lin Jun appeared, everyone could surround and kill him at any time. When some lone wolves arrived and saw such a situation, they immediately retreated. Lin Jun looked like a turtle in a jar, unable to escape at all. Even if they went over, they wouldn't get anything and might even lose their lives. Since that was the case, they might as well continue searching for treasures. Of course, there were some lone wolves who didn't give up and quietly lurked in the surroundings, waiting for an opportunity to come. This included Lonely Star Fishing Elder's disciples who came with Lin Jun. After these people arrived and saw Andamandes, they immediately hid. Although Andamandes had shown great strength, they had no way to retreat. If they didn't get Lin Jun's ruler's jade seal today, it would be taken away by others in the future. Rather than that, they might as well go all out. On top of the giant tree, there were thousands of people in the light and in the dark. There were no lower gods here at all. The weakest were mid-gods. Most of them were upper gods. There were late and peak god kings. Apart from god kings, all of them were here. Now, everyone was patiently waiting for Lin Jun to finish his battle with the metal chi. Without seeing the result, no one would leave. Chapter 1182. Lin Jun had no time to pay attention to the chaos happening in the outside world. After activating the construct boundary, he could only focus on dealing with the invasion of the metal chi. Streaks of metal chi were like steel knives and iron needles that wandered all over Lin Jun's body. However, what corresponded to the metal chi was a wisp of cosmic origin that wandered all over the place, calming down the rampaging metal chi. Lin Jun gritted his teeth and held on for a while. He knew that this couldn't go on forever. This wisp of cosmic origin isn't endless. It will weaken as it continues to calm down the metal chi. The only way I can do this is to grasp the true essence of metal in the shortest time possible. Only by grasping the true essence of metal can I truly use this metal chi without causing any harm. This is my only chance to survive. Lin Jun had grasped the power of water, thunder, and light. These three elemental powers were relatively difficult to grasp, but the power of metal wasn't as easy to grasp either. If thunder was the most violent, then metal was the most dangerous. Even the majority of weapons were metal in nature. The most direct way to cause damage to an enemy wasn't water, fire, light, or thunder, but metal. Back on Earth, Lin Jun had once comprehended the power of metal and could even emit rays of metal chi. Later on, the metal supplementation technique had followed Lin Jun and made great contributions during his battles. However, what he had grasped was only the surface of metal. In theory, if one grasped the true essence of metal, then pure metal wouldn't be able to cause any harm to them. In fact, most metals weren't just made of metal, but also made of many other strange stones and wood. Therefore, even if one completely grasped the true essence of metal, they still couldn't completely resist external damage. Therefore, there were fewer people who cultivated the metal attribute than there were people who cultivated the thunder attribute. It was the most difficult thing for ordinary people to grasp the metal attribute, because metal chi could cause fatal damage to a cultivator at any time. After all, people who were born with a metal attribute like a hedgehog were extremely rare. It wasn't difficult to grasp the metal attribute. For example, Lin Jun had previously comprehended the metal attribute. The most important hurdle was to overcome the fear of metal in one's heart. Only then would one be able to grasp it. This matter sounded very simple, but when it was really done, almost no one could do it. The so-called overcoming of fear was to use gold chi to temper one's two Cs. Dantian Chi C. Spiritual C. The process of training was to have the metal chi penetrate the two Cs inside and out. As long as one did not fear the metal chi during this process and was in a state of meditation, one would be able to comprehend it. But how could he not fear Jin? For most people, seeing a needle about to pierce their blood vessels, they couldn't help but feel fear in their hearts. It was just that the more timid people might cry, while the more courageous people would be able to keep a straight face. However, the fear in one's heart would more or less exist, as long as one was still a human, a living being of flesh and blood. Perhaps those stone life forms wouldn't be afraid. People who didn't have pain, nerves wouldn't be afraid. Unfortunately, such people were born with limited comprehension and would never be able to grasp the true essence of metal. Even if one was a martialist or a god, their thinking was still from the perspective of a living being of flesh and blood. It was impossible for them not to fear Jin. Some people dare to say that they would let the metal chi penetrate their bodies, but they definitely wouldn't dare to let the metal chi penetrate their two Cs. This was because they wouldn't die if their bodies were destroyed. However, if their Dantian Chi C was destroyed, they would lose their divine power. If their spiritual C was destroyed, they would lose their spiritual power. This was equivalent to the end of the martialist. Almost no one dared to try it. Throughout the history of the universe, there had been many courageous martialists who thought they had no fear in their hearts who had tried to cultivate gold chi. However, in the end, out of 10,000 people, 9,999 would fall. They thought that they were already useless, but when it came to real cultivation, as long as there was a trace of fear in their hearts, they wouldn't succeed. This trace of fear might not even be noticed by the person themselves. Most of the people who succeeded were either gifted or lucky. There were too few people who could overcome the gold chi. And now, Lin Jun had no choice. He could only give it a try. Lin Jun could easily endure the pain on his body. He wasn't afraid of the pain of being penetrated by the metal chi. Lin Jun tried to cultivate. However, Lin Jun didn't dare to let the metal chi enter his two Cs. If he failed, the consequences would be unbearable. Before he reached the peak, Lin Jun didn't want to become a cripple. The first thing he did was to let the metal chi penetrate his palm. The metal chi didn't pass through on its own. Instead, Lin Jun forcefully controlled a wisp of metal chi to pierce his palm. The metal chi was as sharp as a needle. It pierced through his skin and flesh. Blood flowed out, but the wound healed. During this process, Lin Jun frowned slightly. So, I have fear in my heart too. The moment the metal chi was about to enter my body, my muscles instinctively contracted. If it weren't for my sensitive senses, I wouldn't have noticed this contraction. Don't underestimate this little contraction. This is a sign of fear, although it's almost undetectable. Lin Jun didn't care about the metal chi penetrating his body. He closed his eyes slightly. This won't do. If I'm afraid of the pain of having the metal chi penetrate my palm, how can I talk about my mind penetrating my two C's? Lin Jun, oh Lin Jun, if you don't have this ability, then this will be your burial ground today. I'm not afraid of pain at all. This metal chi is nothing. Lin Jun opened his eyes abruptly. He grabbed a beam of metal chi with one hand and stabbed it into his palm again. Puff! The metal chi penetrated his palm. Lin Jun's muscles didn't move at all. It's done. Lin Jun exhaled slowly. In that instant, he wasn't afraid at all. He decisively pierced his palm, completing the first step. If I'm not afraid of piercing my palm, then my limbs and muscles won't be afraid. But what if it's my organs? Lin Jun wanted to try the second step, which was to let the metal chi penetrate his heart. The heart was different from the palm. Some ruthless people would even dare to stab their palms or thighs with a knife in a fierce battle. However, very few people would dare to stab their own hearts with a knife. That wasn't a fierce battle, but suicide. Lin Jun's second step was to stab his own heart. With his near-immortal body, he wouldn't die even if his heart was turned to ashes. However, the fear buried deep in his bones couldn't be completely erased. Lin Jun raised his hand, grabbed the metal chi, and stabbed it into his heart. The metal chi penetrated his body. Chapter 1183. Lin Jun was not satisfied with this result. He had already overcome the fear of piercing his palms, so why did he have to be afraid of piercing his heart? Lin Jun even despised himself at this moment. Lin Jun, trash. What are you afraid of? Is it human nature that makes you afraid? You're not worried about piercing your palms, but you're worried about piercing your heart. You won't die, so what are you afraid of? If you're still afraid, then just kill yourself. A cold expression appeared on Lin Jun's face. He grabbed another handful of metal chi and stabbed it into his chest. At this moment, he understood that his fear was instinctive and came from his human nature. He was afraid because he had never tried piercing his own heart before. Just as he thought, piercing his palms and heart would result in the same result. What was there to be afraid of? The metal chi pierced his heart. This time, there was no increase in his heartbeat or blood circulation. The metal chi passed easily. Lin Jun spat out a mouthful of turbid air. He knew that he had passed the second test he had set up. No matter the body, no matter the internal organs. Could he try piercing his palms now? Lin Jun denied himself in his heart. He wanted to try one more time, and that was to pierce his own eyes. Would there be any fear when he pierced his eyes with the metal chi? Lin Jun did not dare to say. In his previous life on Earth, he had watched many movies from the Christian era because he had neglected his cultivation. In those movies, there were scenes of needles piercing one's eyes. It was a terrifying scene. The eyes were the windows to one's soul. The fear of seeing a needle piercing one's heart would cause one to collapse. However, this time, Lin Jun did not hesitate. He grabbed the metal chi and deliberately pierced it slowly. What's the difference between piercing my eyes and piercing my heart? I won't die because of this. Blindness is nothing more than a small pain. Even if I fall asleep, it won't wake me up. He pierced it and pulled it out. The third test was a success. Lin Jun felt his mind clear. He had finally passed his test. He could probably try piercing his palms again. This was a dangerous process. If he succeeded, he would comprehend the metal element. If he failed, then there would be no more. The first thing Lin Jun wanted to test was his Dantian Chi Si. Before starting the experiment, Lin Jun glanced down. The beach below was already densely packed with people. Lin Jun even saw a huge muscular man attacking his space with a wooded tribute branch, but to no avail. The power of the universe's origin in his body was gradually weakening as it suppressed the gold aura. This proved that he did not have much time left. If he couldn't comprehend the true essence of metal before the power of the universe's origin disappeared, Lin Jun's journey of rebirth would probably come to an end. Feeling that his condition was about right, Lin Jun grabbed a handful of metal qi that was flying around his body and aimed it at his Dantian Qi Si. It wasn't just piercing through his body, it was piercing through the God world and into his sea of qi. If anything went wrong, he would be crippled. No matter how many times Lin Jun's body was attacked, it couldn't shake his heart that was as hard as stone. However, his Dantian Qi Si was different. When the palm of metal qi approached his Dantian Qi Si, Lin Jun even felt the palm of his hand hesitate. How can this be? It's just piercing into my Dantian Qi Si. Why would I feel afraid? Although Lin Jun kept encouraging himself in his heart, the fear couldn't be erased. He tried a few times and failed a few times. He didn't even dare to let the metal qi enter his body. The fear in his heart couldn't be overcome just because he wanted to. The words of comfort from before were completely ineffective. Understand, I pierced my palm, my heart, and my eyes because I knew that even if I failed, there wouldn't be any consequences. Although these parts are important to ordinary people, they are no longer important to gods. If I can even give up on my body, why should I be afraid of these things? But the Dantian Qi Si is different. It can't be broken. Once it's broken, it can't be gathered back. His palms gradually became sweaty. After Lin Jun's rebirth, this was the first time he felt like this. At this moment, his heart was in turmoil. Scenes after his rebirth appeared in his mind. What should I do? I don't dare to take the risk of losing my divine power and spiritual power. As long as I have these scruples, I can't do anything. I don't even dare to experiment. If I try, I'll die. Because I'm afraid, I don't dare to try. The more I don't dare to try, the more I'm afraid. This is simply an endless cycle. At this time, the lush trees outside rose into the sky, forming a huge array outside the space Lin Jun was in. Countless powerhouses surrounded him, waiting for the moment when Lin Jun couldn't maintain the space or suppress the metal qi. Looking at the eyes of these people, Lin Jun felt like he was in the wilderness, in the grasslands. These people were like a pack of wolves, like vultures, ready to devour his flesh at any time. Just as Lin Jun didn't know what to do and was getting more and more anxious, a voice faintly sounded in his mind. Lin Jun, what are you afraid of? Here it's you. This voice appeared in Lin Jun's mind for the third time, on the star of God's punishment, in the primordial realm, and now here. You're afraid of the metal qi. You're afraid of losing your power. You're hesitating and hesitating. These are all your inner demons, stumbling blocks that block your path forward. They're enemies that you must get rid of. I understand, but this thing is very difficult to overcome. Lin Jun was a little ashamed. If you want to overcome the feelings in your heart, you have to start from the heart. Lin Jun, don't forget where you came from. After saying this, the voice gradually drifted away and dissipated. No matter how Lin Jun called, there was no response. What is this senior trying to tell me? Where did I come from? Lin Jun fell into deep thought. That's right. Lin Jun thought for a while, and suddenly his eyes lit up. I was reborn. I shouldn't have appeared here. The power in the unseen world gave me a second life. Everything I have now was earned. Even if I turn into ashes and die now, I've earned it. It's worth it. If that's the case, what is there that I can't accept and let go of? Lin Jun sat cross-legged on the ground and closed his eyes. His heart was empty. He held two long golden needles with both hands. One entered his Dantian sea of qi, and the other entered his sea of consciousness. The needles passed, and he was fine. When Lin Jun opened his eyes again, the sharpness in his eyes rose to the sky. They were like the fiery eyes of gold. Lin Jun suddenly opened his mouth, and the divine power in his body surged. His body, which had been ravaged all this time, opened up completely. Every pore in his limbs and bones opened up. The metal qi, which had been compressed within a few hundred meters and was as dense as neutrons and as dense as a galaxy, seemed to have found a vent in an instant. It went straight into Lin Jun's body. This huge amount of energy was so vast that it surged into Lin Jun's Dantian Sea of Qi. Chapter 1184. All the gods and the moon elf tree raised their heads with their mouths wide open. They looked at the person in the center, Lin Jun. What happened to this guy? Not good. He has comprehended the true essence of metal. The demonic tree king was the first to let out a roar. He clenched his fists tightly, but he was helpless against Lin Jun, who was in the space. Everyone felt their hearts tighten. The devil-masked man had actually comprehended it. The true essence of metal was extremely difficult to comprehend. How could Lin Jun comprehend it so quickly? Moreover, it wasn't as simple as comprehending it. He was even about to make a breakthrough. This guy. So what if you have made a breakthrough? There are 3,000 people in the moon elf tree. Every one of them is at least a late-stage high god. Most of them are peak high gods, and there are even quasi-god kings. Once you appear, you will be the target of their attacks. These people weren't afraid. Instead, they were looking forward to it. Lin Jun was finally coming out. Their wait was about to end. Lin Jun never thought that the energy this time would be so violent. The amount of metal energy accumulated by the hedgehog over 1 billion years was simply incalculable. Lin Jun originally thought that after advancing to mid-god, he would need at least 50 years or even 100 or 200 years before he would have the opportunity to advance to mid-stage mid-god. He definitely didn't think that the mid-stage would come so quickly. This energy, which was even greater than the solar system, had pushed his realm from early stage to mid-stage in less than a minute. Ah! Lin Jun couldn't help but let out a roar. His long hair was pulled by the wind and fluttered in the air like flames. His clothes had completely swelled up. His skin was red and his eyeballs were bulging out. This was because the energy in his body was too great. It was impossible to not digest this energy. Lin Jun was just a human, an astral river beast. If he wanted to digest this energy, he could only make a breakthrough in his realm. It was like a bottle of water. The bigger the container, the more water it could hold. From early stage to mid-stage, Lin Jun's appearance, which looked like his blood vessels would burst at any time, seemed to have decreased a little. However, it was only a little. If one didn't pay close attention, one wouldn't be able to tell the difference. This proved that the impact of this energy was far from over. From early stage to mid-stage mid-god, Lin Jun's 1,510,000 divine energy points soared by 200,000, reaching 1,710,000. The clone's divine power was also increasing by 70,000. However, Lin Jun didn't have the time to pay attention to these people. He was in a hurry to clear his meridians and ensure that his body was in perfect condition. He wanted to make sure that he could maximize the use of this energy. He knew that such an opportunity was extremely rare. To be able to comprehend the true essence of metal when the metal chi was at its peak, and to be able to do so after 1 billion years of accumulation. In the entire history of the universe, this was an unprecedented event that could not be replicated. Within his sea of energy, balls of golden light danced about, causing his god world to expand once more. The tide-like gold chi was still crashing against his next barrier. The barrier between mid-stage mid-gods and late-stage mid-gods. The energy required to go from mid-stage to late-stage mid-gods was at least 3 times that of early-stage to mid-stage mid-gods. However, such a barrier still couldn't stop the onslaught of the gold chi. Every pore on his body opened up, and the dense gold chi in the surroundings rapidly poured in as though it had found an entrance, allowing him to make another breakthrough. With a rumble, he opened the next barrier. Late-stage mid-god. His divine power soared by another 200,000, reaching 1,900,000. The clone's divine power had also reached 590,000. After breaking through 2 barriers in succession, nearly half of the gold chi had been consumed. However, the remaining gold chi was still enormous, and it was still pouring in endlessly. Lin Jun was going to go all the way. Since he had already reached this point, there was no need to hold back. First, he would raise his realm. As for stabilizing his realm, that was a matter for the future. 1,000 rivers flowed into the sea, but who knew that Mount Tai was originally a speck of dust? When the tiny strands of gold chi reached an almost infinite number, a qualitative change finally occurred. It actually allowed an early-stage mid-god to break through to the peak of mid-god. When the third barrier was opened, Lin Zhun's divine power broke through again, reaching 2,110,000. The clone's divine power increased by another 50,000, reaching 660,000. When the last breath of gold chi was sucked in by Lin Zhun, this crazy journey of improvement finally calmed down. His skin shone with a faint bronze color. Lin Zhun twisted his body. Ka ka ka. The sound of metal rubbing against each other could be heard. He slowly raised his palm. This body that had been tortured had become so strong that it was unimaginable. He took out the star soul spear that lonely star fishing old man had given him and pierced his palm. The tip of the star soul spear let out a mournful cry, completely unable to leave a mark on Lin Zhun's palm. Equipment. It's actually close to middle-grade equipment. Lin Zhun suddenly looked up to the sky and laughed loudly. Ha ha ha. I really didn't expect this to be a blessing in disguise. I can look forward to the great Tao. His gaze swept across the people waiting outside. Because of the spatial barrier, they could only vaguely see the situation of Lin Zhun's breakthrough. They couldn't sense any changes in Lin Zhun at all, so they were still guarding there, waiting for Lin Zhun to come out. Lin Zhun's lips curled up in a smile. Divine power fusion. A lightning doppelganger, light clone, in Lin Zhun's god world, flashed at the same time and fused with his main body. His main body's divine power was 2,110,000. Adding on the divine power of the two clones, Lin Zhun's divine power instantly soared to 3,430,000. God domain activated. With an 80% increase, Lin Zhun's divine power reached 6,170,000. It had to be known that when Lin Zhun fought the quasi-god King Hedgehog, Hedgehog's divine power had barely reached 6 million. It couldn't even compare to Lin Zhun's current divine power. Lin Zhun was even certain that if he and Hedgehog were to fight again, Lin Zhun would definitely be able to kill Hedgehog a few hundred times over. With a clang, Lin Zhun unsheathed his jackdaw godly sword. He raised a hand, and a hazy golden light covered jackdaw. This was Lin Zhun's newest gold enhancement. It could even upgrade high-grade equipment. Jackdaw was already high-grade to begin with, but now it was infinitely close to becoming a top-grade equipment. Strands of sword energy sprayed out. This was the metal energy Lin Zhun was unable to suppress within his body. He had just broken through to the peak of mid-god, and his realm was still unstable. But Lin Zhun could no longer suppress it. With this violent metal energy pouring into him, he felt like he had to vent it out. If he didn't vent, he would definitely be forced into depression. With a thought, the space around him dispersed. Fresh air flowed in, sunlight, green trees, as well as the countless surrounding people who were glaring at him like tigers watching their prey. Lin Zhun's golden, lantern-like eyes swept the crowd, and then he said a few words calmly. Have you paid a fee to watch me? A high god who was about to attack was startled. You're not a monkey. Do we have to pay a fee to watch you?